In this video, I'll be explaining the entire timeline of the Elder Scrolls in chronological order, covering every major era and event from the very beginning of creation all the way through to the Dragon Crisis in Skyrim and beyond. This timeline spans the Dawn Era, the Merethic Era, and all the numbered eras that follow, including the settings of the Elder Scrolls, Online, Arena, Daggerfall, Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, which means we're looking at thousands of years of history across multiple games and expansions. Now, I should mention up front that this timeline focuses on major in-universe events and game settings, not every single book or minor historical event, because if I tried to cover every piece of lore from every in-game text, we'd be here for days. As always, throughout the video, there will be a timeline animation at the bottom of the screen, so you can easily follow along and understand exactly when each event takes place. Here's something fascinating that a lot of people don't realize. The Elder Scrolls' deepest lore stretches back to a time before time, with the creation of the Orbis itself, long before any mortal race walked Tamriel. But before we get to any of that, we need to explain the setting first. Before the world of Tamriel existed, before the continents formed and the races walked upon them, before time itself had meaning, there was only the interplay of two fundamental forces. The Dawn Era, that mythic age of creation that exists outside conventional history, begins not with a moment but with a concept. At the heart of all Elder Scrolls, cosmology stands the Orbis, the universe itself, born from the eternal struggle between Anu and Padome. These are not gods in any traditional sense. They are primal forces, the bedrock of existence. Anu represents stasis, order, light, and the comfort of unchanging permanence. Padome embodies change, chaos, darkness, and the terror and beauty of transformation. Neither is good nor evil. Both are necessary. Their conflict, their dance, their endless interplay creates the possibility of everything that follows. There was the Grey Maybe. This primordial void was not empty nothingness. It was potentiality itself, a formless gradient between being and non-being, a canvas waiting for the first brushstroke. The Grey Maybe existed as the first state of Orbis, a place where concepts had not yet crystallized into reality, where the boundary between thought and substance remained fluid and undefined. Imagine a fog of infinite possibility where nothing was fixed, nothing was certain, and everything existed in superposition. This was the womb from which all creation would eventually emerge. From this Grey Maybe, from the essence of Padome's nature, came Sithis. Now, Sithis is one of the most misunderstood concepts in Tamrielic theology. The Dark Brotherhood, that infamous guild of assassins you may encounter in your travels, worships Sithis as a god of death and murder. But that is a profound simplification. Sithis is the embodiment of Padome's chaotic change, the force that prevents the universe from calcifying into eternal sameness. Sithis is the void, the hunger, the impulse toward alteration. Without Sithis, there would be no motion, no growth, no death, and paradoxically, no life. Sithis emerged from the Grey, maybe not as a being, but as a principle, a cosmic inevitability that ensures nothing remains static forever. In some texts, Sithis is described as the original creator, the force that first disturbed the perfect stillness of Anu. In others, Sithis is the great destroyer, the entropy at the end of all things. Both descriptions carry truth, but creation requires more than chaos. From Anu's essence, from the principle of order and self-reflection, emerged Anuiel. If Sithis was the void's hunger, Anuiel was the universe's first moment of self-awareness. Anuiel became the soul of Anu, the first entity capable of perceiving itself as distinct from the formless Grey Maybe. This act of self-recognition was revolutionary. It created the possibility of identity, of individuality, of consciousness itself. Anuiel looked inward and saw order, pattern, and structure. Where Sithis was limitless change, Anuiel was the first limit, the first boundary that said, "This is me, and that is not me." From Anuiel's contemplation of its own nature came something extraordinary. Auriel was born, the dragon god of time, the first of the Aedra. You may know him better by his Cyrodiilic name, Akatosh, the chief deity of the Nine Divines and the patron of the Empire. But in the Dawn Era, he was Auriel, and he was the first spirit to emerge from Anuiel's soul with a defined identity and purpose. Auriel's birth marked the beginning of time itself. Before Auriel, there was no sequence, no before and after, no cause and effect. His existence created the framework upon which history could be written. The dragon, that symbol you see on imperial banners and in ancient Nordic carvings, represents this fundamental truth. Auriel is the spine of the world, the linear progression that allows events to follow one another in comprehensible order. The Aldmer, the ancient elves who would later splinter into the various Mer races, revered Auriel as their greatest ancestor. To them, he represented the pinnacle of creation, the closest thing to the original perfection of Anuiel. With Auriel's birth, the floodgates opened. From the continuing interplay of Anuiel and Sithis, from order and chaos dancing together, came the At'ada, the original spirits. These beings would eventually be classified into two categories. The Aedra, whose name means our ancestors in the old Aldmeri tongue, were spirits who aligned more closely with Anwiel's principle of order and self-sacrifice. They were capable of creation, of giving parts of themselves to build something greater. Then there were the Daedra, not our ancestors, spirits who embodied the Sithist principle of self-preservation and change. The Daedra refused to diminish themselves, choosing instead to remain whole and powerful in their own realms. This distinction would shape the entire religious and metaphysical landscape of Tamriel for millennia to come. The Aedra would become the gods of mortals, distant and diminished by their act of creation. The Daedra would become the princes, powerful and present, capable of direct intervention but fundamentally alien to mortal concerns. Among these original spirits were the Magna G, the children of Magnus, who would play a crucial role in what was to come. Magnus himself was a spirit of magic, of mathematics, of the underlying patterns that govern reality. The Magna GE were spirits of Aetherius, that plane of pure magic that exists beyond the mortal realm. They were architects and planners, beings who understood the deep structure of creation. Aetherius is the source of all magic in the Elder Scrolls universe. When you cast a spell, when you see the stars at night, when you witness the Aurora Borealis dancing across Skyrim's northern sky, you are seeing the light of Aetherius bleeding through into the mortal world. The Magna G would become the stars themselves, but that part of the story comes later. And then there was Lorkhan, the missing god, the Doom Drum, Shor to the Nords, Shazar to the Cyrodiilic people, Sep to the Redguards. Lorkhan is the most controversial figure in all of Tamrielic mythology. Depending on who you ask, he is either the greatest hero or the vilest traitor in creation. Lorkhan was born as what some scholars classify as a Daedric prince, a spirit of change and trickery aligned with the Sithist principle. But unlike the other Daedra who would retreat to their own realms, Lorkhan looked at the infinite possibility of the Orbis and conceived of something radical. He imagined Mundus, the mortal realm, a place of limitation and experience. You see, in the Dawn era, the spirits existed in a state of infinite potential. They could be anything, do anything, experience everything. But this meant they truly experienced nothing. Without limitation, without consequence, without the possibility of failure or death, existence was ultimately meaningless. Lorkhan understood this fundamental paradox. He saw that only through limitation could true meaning emerge. Only by giving up immortality could one truly live. Only by risking loss could one value what one had. So Lorkhan began to speak. He went among the Aedra with a vision and a promise. He described a realm where spirits could incarnate, where they could experience linear time, where their actions would have weight and consequence. He painted a picture of a world where beauty and tragedy could exist, where love and loss would give meaning to existence. He told them of mortality, of the chance to create something that would persist beyond themselves. And, crucially, Lorkhan convinced the Aedra to contribute their divine essence to the creation of Mundus. He needed their power, their sacrifice to make his vision real. This was not a simple deception. Lorkhan genuinely believed in his vision, but he may not have been entirely forthcoming about the cost. The Aedra, inspired by his words and curious about this new possibility, agreed. They began to pour their essence into the creation of the mortal realm, diminishing themselves in the process. Magnus took the lead as the architect, designing the fundamental structures of Mundus. Other Aedra contributed aspects of themselves. Kinnereth gave the winds and the air, Mara gave love and compassion, Stendarr gave mercy and justice. Each contribution made Mundus more real, more solid, more permanent, and each contribution cost the Aedra a portion of their infinite power. With Lorkhan's vision articulated and his persuasive arguments laid before the Ada, the time came for each spirit to make their choice. Magnus, the god of magic and architecture, was among the first to be drawn to the concept. His nature as a designer, as a creator of structures and systems, found deep resonance with Lorkhan's proposal. Where others saw only abstract possibility, Magnus saw blueprints waiting to be drawn. He volunteered his expertise, his divine understanding of form and function, to translate Lorkhan's dream into something tangible. Magnus set to work drafting the fundamental architecture of Mundus, the mortal plane. His designs were intricate beyond mortal comprehension, weaving together the laws of physics, the flow of time, the interaction of matter and energy. He plotted the boundaries between realms, calculated the structural integrity needed to support a stable world, and determined how magic, that essence of Aetherius itself, might flow through this new creation. Magnus poured his considerable intellect into these blueprints, creating what would become known as the Mythic Dawn, the foundational framework upon which all of Mundus would rest. As Magnus worked, Lorkhan continued his campaign of recruitment among the Ada. Many of the most powerful spirits found themselves swayed by his arguments. Akatosh, the dragon god of time, agreed to participate, understanding that his very nature would be essential to giving Mundus structure and sequence. Without time, there could be no change, no growth, no stories to unfold. His agreement was perhaps the most crucial, for it meant that linear time itself would become woven into the fabric of this new world. Mara, the goddess embodying love and compassion, saw in Mundus an opportunity for connection and relationship on a scale impossible in the timeless reaches of Aetherius. Dibella, associated with beauty and artistry, envisioned a realm where aesthetic experience could flourish in finite, precious moments. Kinnereth, the spirit of the heavens and the elements, agreed to lend her essence to give Mundus its skies and winds, its weather and natural cycles. Arche, who would later become associated with the cycle of life and death, joined the endeavor, though at this stage the very concept of mortality was still theoretical, still something that existed only in Lorcan's persuasive descriptions and Magnus's technical specifications. Zenithar, representing work, commerce, and the rewards of labor, saw potential in a world where effort and achievement could have meaning. Stendar, embodying mercy and righteous rule, believed that a mortal realm might need divine compassion and justice. These spirits, along with others, became known collectively as the Aedra, meaning our ancestors in the Aldmeri language. This name would only make sense later, after their sacrifice, after they became bound to Mundus in ways that would make them the progenitors of mortal races. But in these early moments of decision, they were simply Aeda who chose to participate in something unprecedented. Not all spirits were convinced by Lorcan's vision, however. The Daedric princes, those at Aeda who would come to rule their own realms of oblivion, refused to participate in Mundus's creation. Their reasons varied, but all shared a fundamental unwillingness to sacrifice their power and autonomy for Lorcan's experiment. Mehrunes Dagon, the Prince of Destruction and Change, saw no appeal in creating something stable and enduring. His nature thrived in chaos and revolution, not in the ordered structure Magnus was designing. Molag Bal, the Prince of Domination and Corruption, refused to diminish himself for any cause, viewing the entire proposal as beneath his dignity. Boethia, the Prince of Plots and Deceit, may have sensed something suspicious in Lorcan's persuasive arguments, some hidden cost that the trickster god was not fully disclosing. Azura, Meridia, Nocturnal, Sheogorath, Hermaeus Mora, and the other princes each had their own reasons for declining. Some were philosophical objections, others simple self-interest. What united them was their decision to remain apart, to retain their full power and independence rather than invest themselves in Mundus. This choice would define them forever after as Daedra, meaning not our ancestors in Aldmeri, setting them apart from the Aedra who chose differently. The Daedric princes would go on to create their own realms within Oblivion, pocket dimensions of reality shaped entirely by their individual wills, proving that creation was possible without the sacrifice Lorcan demanded. But these realms would be extensions of the princes themselves, static reflections of their natures, lacking the dynamic, unpredictable quality that Lorcan promised for Mundus. With Magnus's blueprints complete and enough at Aeda committed to the project, the creation of Mundus began. This was not a simple act of will, not a mere thought made manifest. The construction of a mortal plane required the participating Aedra to pour their very essence into the work. They drew upon their power, that fundamental force that defined them as divine beings, and channeled it into giving form to Magnus's designs. The process was immense, operating on scales of energy and effort that defy mortal understanding. Reality itself had to be bent, shaped, and stabilized. The chaotic potential of the void had to be given structure. Time, which Akatosh embodied, had to be made linear and progressive rather than the fluid, non-sequential experience of Aetherius. As the work progressed, as Mundus began to take shape from concept to reality, the Aedra started to realize the true cost of what they had undertaken. The drain on their essence was not temporary, not something they could recover from once the work was complete. With each passing moment, as more of their power flowed into Mundus, they felt themselves diminishing. Their immortality, that fundamental quality of being at Ada, began to feel less certain. The infinite nature of their existence started to contract, to become bounded by the very world they were creating. What Lorcan had described as sacrifice was revealing itself to be something far more profound and irreversible. They were not merely lending their power to Mundus, they were becoming part of it, trapped within it, bound to it in ways that would fundamentally alter their nature. Magnus was among the first to fully comprehend the horror of what was happening. His architectural mind, so adept at understanding systems and structures, suddenly grasped the true implications of the blueprints he had drawn. Mundus was not simply drawing on their power, it was consuming them. The mortal plane would stabilize only by anchoring itself to their very beings, making them permanent pillars supporting its existence. They would never be free of it, never return to the timeless glory of Aetherius. Magnus, horrified by this realization, by the understanding that he had designed his own prison, made a desperate decision. He fled. Using his intimate knowledge of Mundus's structure, he tore through the fabric of the forming world, ripping open a passage back to Aetherius. The hole he created was massive, a wound in reality itself, and through it, Magnus escaped, abandoning the project he had designed. Other spirits, seeing Magnus flee and understanding what it meant, followed him. These beings, known as the Magna G or the Star Orphans, were primarily Magnus's followers and assistants, spirits who had worked closely with him on the technical aspects of creation. They tore their own holes in the fabric of Mundus as they fled, each escape creating another tear in the boundary between the mortal plane and Aetherius. These tears became the stars, fixed points of light in the sky of Mundus where the radiance of Aetherius shines through. Each star represents a spirit who chose escape over sacrifice, who valued their freedom over the completion of Lorcan's vision. The sun itself is Magnus, the largest tear in the fabric of Mundus, the most massive wound in the boundary between worlds. It represents the god's own desperate flight. Through this enormous opening, the light and power of Aetherius pours into Mundus in tremendous quantities. This influx is what mortals would come to know as magic, the ability to manipulate reality through force of will and knowledge of proper techniques. Magic in Mundus is literally the power of Aetherius leaking through the hole Magnus made when he fled. Without his escape, without that tear in reality, the mortal plane would be a world of pure physicality, where the only power would be muscle and lever, where the supernatural would be impossible. The remaining Aedra, those who did not or could not follow Magnus, found themselves in a desperate situation. With so much power already invested, with Mundus half-formed and unstable, they had no choice but to continue. To stop now would mean the collapse of everything they had built, the waste of all they had already sacrificed. They poured even more of their essence into Mundus, stabilizing its structure, completing its fundamental systems, ensuring it would endure. This final push cost them nearly everything. Their vast power diminished to a fraction of what it had been. Their infinite nature became bounded and limited. Their forms, once fluid and mutable, solidified into fixed identities. They became the 8 divines, the Aedra who gave themselves to create and sustain Mundus, forever bound to the world they had made, able to influence it only indirectly. Through blessing and subtle intervention, their direct power spent in the act of creation itself. The remaining Aedra, weakened and enraged by their diminishment, turned their fury upon Lorcan. They accused him of treachery, of deceiving them into sacrificing their divine essence for a realm that would trap them, limit them, and ultimately destroy their immortal nature. Whether Lorcan had indeed tricked his fellow spirits or whether he had acted from a genuine vision of creation remains one of the most debated questions in Tamrielic theology. To the Altmer, the High Elves who would claim descent from the Aedra, Lorcan was the Doomdrum, the architect of their fall from grace. To others, particularly among mankind, he was a hero who gave mortals the gift of existence, who created a realm where change, growth, and transcendence through struggle became possible. Regardless of interpretation, the Aedra's anger was absolute, and they demanded justice for what they perceived as the ultimate betrayal. This confrontation led to what scholars call the Convention, the first and perhaps most important event in linear time. The convention took place on the Adamantine Tower, also known as the Doreni Tower, which stood on Balfira Island in what would eventually become High Rock. The Adamantine Tower was not built, it simply was, the first structure to exist in Mundus, a pillar of reality itself that served as the anchor point between Aetherius and the mortal plane. Some texts suggest the tower emerged at the moment of creation, a necessary axis around which the Mundus could coalesce. Others claim it was formed by the collective will of the Aedra as they sought to stabilize their dying creation. What remains undisputed is that the convention represented the moment when linear time truly began, when cause and effect became fixed, when the chaotic possibility of the Dawn era crystallized into the rigid flow of history. At this convention, Ariel, who had led the Aedra in their work of creation and who now stood as their champion, confronted Lorcan directly. Ariel, known to the Aldmer as the first of the Aldmeri gods and later worshipped by men as Akatosh, embodied time itself, and his accusation carried the weight of all the suffering the Aedra had endured. He declared that Lorcan had sundered the divine unity, that he had condemned mortal spirits to mortality and limitation, that he had created a prison disguised as a gift. Lorcan's defense, if he offered one, has been lost to history, or perhaps it was never recorded by those who saw him only as a villain. Some apocryphal texts suggest he remained silent, accepting his fate with the knowledge that his vision had succeeded, that Mundus existed and would endure. Others claim he laughed, seeing in his punishment the final proof that his creation was real, that consequences now mattered in a way they never had in the timeless void of Aetherius. The Aedra called upon Trinimac, the strongest among them, to serve as their instrument of justice. Trinimac was the champion of Oriel, a warrior spirit of unmatched prowess who had fought beside the other Aedra throughout the creation process. Where other spirits had poured their essence into the fabric of Mundus, Trinimac had retained much of his power, standing as a protector and enforcer of divine will. He represented the Aedric ideal of strength through righteousness, of power wielded in service of order and justice. Trinimac accepted the charge without hesitation, viewing Lorcan's punishment as both necessary and righteous. To allow the Doomdrum to escape consequence would be to render meaningless all the sacrifice the Aedra had endured. The battle between Trinimac and Lorcan shook the foundations of the newly formed world. Though both had been weakened by their participation in creation, they remained beings of immense power, and their conflict transcended mere physical combat. They fought with weapons forged from their own divine essence, each blow resonating through the layers of reality, each strike threatening to unmake what had only just been made. Lorcan, despite his cunning and his vision, could not match Trinimac's martial prowess. The warrior god pressed his advantage relentlessly, driving Lorcan back, breaking through his defenses, demonstrating the superiority of Aedric justice over what they saw as the space god's treachery. The outcome was never truly in doubt. Trinamac had the strength of righteous anger behind him, the collective will of the betrayed Aedra flowing through his blows. While Lorkhan fought alone, his allies among the spirits either too weak to intervene or unwilling to stand against the judgment of the convention, Trinamac's victory was absolute. He brought Lorkhan down before the assembled Aedra, binding him so that final judgment could be passed. Then Auriel himself stepped forward to deliver the ultimate punishment. The king of the Aldmer took hold of Lorkhan's divine essence and, with a terrible finality, ripped the space god's heart from his chest. This was not merely a physical act, but a spiritual sundering, the removal of the core of Lorkhan's being, the seat of his power and his vision. The heart, incredibly, continued to beat even after its removal, pulsing with the rhythm of creation itself, a testament to the fundamental role Lorkhan had played in bringing Mundus into existence. The beating heart proved that Lorkhan's connection to the mortal plane could not be entirely severed, that he had woven himself so thoroughly into the fabric of Mundus that even his destruction could not fully unmake his influence. Auriel, recognizing the danger of keeping such a powerful artifact near the Adamantine Tower, cast the heart away with tremendous force. It flew across the breadth of Tamriel, still beating, still radiating divine power, until it struck the earth in the Velothi Mountains in what would become the province of Morrowind. The impact was cataclysmic. The ground erupted upward, rock and magma surging around the heart as if the world itself sought to contain or protect this fragment of divine essence. The Red Mountain, known in the Dunmeri language as Dagoth-ur or later as Red Mountain proper, formed around Lorkhan's heart, a massive volcano that would dominate the landscape of Vardenfell for all the ages to come. The heart itself came to rest in a chamber deep within the mountain, in a place that would eventually be called the Heart Chamber, where it would continue to beat for thousands of years, its power seeping into the surrounding land, transforming it, corrupting it, elevating it. The Red Mountain became a site of immense and terrible power. The heart's presence warped reality in the surrounding region, creating phenomena that defied natural law. The mountain itself seemed alive in the ways that ordinary volcanoes were not, its eruptions timed to events of cosmic significance, its lava flows carrying traces of divine essence that could transform those who came into contact with them. The Dwemer, the deep elves who would eventually settle in the region, would become obsessed with the heart, seeing in it the key to transcendence and the secret of divine power. The Chimer, who would become the Dunmer, would build their entire civilization in the shadow of the mountain, their greatest houses vying for influence over the region, their culture shaped by proximity to this fragment of a dead god. But all of this lay far in the future, in ages yet to come. Lorkhan's punishment was not complete with the removal of his heart. His body, now heartless and dying, was torn apart by the assembled Aedra. His physical form was sundered completely, scattered across the void, his divine spark fragmenting as his essence dispersed. Yet, even in death, Lorkhan's influence persisted. The largest fragments of his sundered body rose into the sky, becoming the two moons that would forever orbit Nirn. Masser, the larger moon, and Secunda, the smaller, were born from Lorkhan's corpse, eternal reminders of his sacrifice and his punishment. To the Khajiit, the catfolk of elsewhere, these moons would become central to their entire existence, their forms and their fates determined by the phases of Masser and Secunda at the moment of their birth. To the Altmer, the moons represented the corpse of the Doom Drum, a warning against hubris and deception. To mankind, they were symbols of Lorkhan's enduring legacy, proof that even the gods could not entirely erase what he had created. With Lorkhan defeated and Mundus stabilized, the remaining spirits who had participated in creation faced a choice. Some had already fled back to Aetherius, escaping before they could be trapped entirely in the mortal plane. Others had died completely, their essence scattered and lost. But many remained, too weakened to escape, but too strong to simply dissipate. These spirits became the Elnophe, a word meaning earth bones in the Aldmeri language. The Elnophe were the immortal aspects of the Aedra who had given themselves so completely to creation that they became part of the fundamental structure of Mundus itself. They were not dead, but neither were they truly alive in the way they had been in Aetherius. Instead, they became the laws of nature, the principles that governed reality, the underlying framework that allowed the mortal plane to function. The Elnophe manifested in many forms. Some became the physical laws that governed matter and energy, ensuring that stone remained solid, that water flowed downward, that fire consumed and wind scattered. Others became more abstract principles, the concepts of growth and decay, of life and death, of change and permanence. Still others retained enough individual consciousness to walk the world as the first true inhabitants of Mundus, beings that were neither fully divine nor fully mortal, ancestors to the races that would eventually populate Tamriel. These walking Elnophe would eventually diverge into different groups, their conflicts and migrations shaping the prehistory of the continent. But in these final moments of the Dawn era, they represented the bridge between the divine and the mortal, the last remnants of the Age of Gods walking among their creation. Dawn era concluded not with a single definitive moment, but with a gradual stabilization, a settling of reality into fixed patterns. The chaotic possibility that had defined creation gave way to the rigid certainty of linear time. The convention had established cause and effect, had made history possible, and now that history could truly begin. Mundus was no longer a realm of pure potential, but a world of consequences, where actions mattered and time flowed in only one direction. The Elnathae, whether as natural laws or as the first mortal adjacent beings, ensured that this stability would persist, that the sacrifice of the Aedra would not be wasted, that Lorcan's vision, however controversial its execution, would endure. We emerge from the Dawn Era's chaos into the Merethic Era, a time so ancient that its events blur the line between myth and history. The Merethic Era, also called the Mythic Era, spans thousands of years before mortals began keeping written records, yet it is here that the very bones of reality are set in place. This is when the world transitions from pure concept into something tangible, something that can be walked upon, bled upon, and ultimately fought over. The foundation of everything begins with two primordial forces. Anu, the force of stasis, order, and light, stands in eternal opposition to Padme, the force of change, chaos, and darkness. These are not gods in any traditional sense. They are more fundamental than that, more like the underlying grammar of existence itself. From their eternal interplay, their endless dance of opposition and synthesis, comes the Orbis. The Orbis is the totality of all that exists, the entire universe and all its planes, all its possibilities. Think of it as the canvas upon which everything else will be painted. Within this framework, Anu creates the is, the things that are stable and defined. Padme creates the is not, the void, the potential, the space between things. Neither can exist without the other. The is needs the is not to define its boundaries, and the is not needs the is to give it meaning. This interplay generates something new, something neither force intended. It generates consciousness. From Anu and Padme's intermingling come their souls, Anu-El and Sithis. Anu-El is the soul of Anu, the force that seeks to preserve and maintain. Sithis is the soul of Padme, the force that seeks to destroy and transform. And from these souls come the Et-Ada, the original spirits. The term Et-Ada means original spirits in the old Aldmeri tongue, and these beings are the first true entities with will and purpose. They exist in the timeless realm of Aetherius, a plane of pure magic and limitless potential. Among these Et-Ada, some will become known as the Aedra, meaning our ancestors, while others will become the Daedra, meaning not our ancestors. But that distinction comes later, born from a choice that will define the cosmos. One of these Et-Ada is Lorcan, known by many names across many cultures. The Nords call him Shor. The Elves call him the Doom Drum or the Missing God, and they do not say these names with affection. Lorcan is different from the other spirits. Where they are content to exist in the timeless perfection of Aetherius, Lorcan dreams of something more. He dreams of limitation. He dreams of a place where time flows forward, where actions have consequences, where beings can grow and change and die. He dreams of Mundus, the mortal plane. Lorcan is charismatic, persuasive, and according to some accounts, deceitful. He goes among the Et-Ada and presents his vision. He tells them that by combining their power, they can create something unprecedented. A realm where the spirits can know themselves through limitation, where they can experience the full spectrum of existence, not just the static perfection of Aetherius. He convinces many of them. Auriel, who will become the chief deity of the elves, agrees. Magnus, the god of magic, agrees. Trinimac, the warrior god, agrees. Kinnereth, Julianos, Dibella, and many others add their strength to the project. These willing participants will become known as the Aedra, the gods who sacrifice themselves to create the world. The creation of Mundus is not a simple act of will. It requires the Et-Ada to pour their very essence into the structure of reality. They must give up their immortality, their infinite power, their timeless existence. As Mundus takes shape, as the laws of nature solidify, as time begins its inexorable march, the Aedra realize what they have lost. They are diminished, bound to the world they have created. Some of them are so weakened that they fade into the very fabric of Mundus, becoming the earth bones, the fundamental laws that govern physics, nature, and magic. These earth bones ensure that water flows downhill, that fire burns, that living things must eat and breathe. They are the sacrifice that makes mortal life possible. Many of the Aedra feel betrayed. They look at Lorcan and see a trickster, a deceiver who led them into a trap. Whether Lorcan genuinely believed in his vision or whether he knowingly tricked the other gods remains one of the great theological debates of Tamriel. The elves who revere the Aedra see Lorcan as the villain of creation, the god who stole their ancestors' divinity. Humans, on the other hand, often see him as a hero, the god who gave them the gift of mortality, the chance to prove themselves through struggle. The most dramatic moment of this divine conflict comes when Auriel and Trinimac confront Lorcan. In their rage and grief over what has been lost, they pass judgment on him. Trinimac, the strongest of the Aedra, tears out Lorcan's heart. This is not a metaphorical act. The heart is a physical thing, a crystalline mass of divine power still beating with the rhythm of creation. Auriel takes the heart and shoots it across the world with his bow. The heart falls to Nirn, the planet at the center of Mundus, and where it lands, a mountain erupts from the earth. This is Red Mountain, the volcano that will dominate the landscape of Morrowind for all of history. The heart sinks deep into the mountain's core, and there it continues to beat, a source of unimaginable power and corruption. Not all the Atata accept the sacrifice. Magnus, the god of magic and the architect of Mundus, realizes the true cost of creation before it is too late. He looks at what is happening to the Aedra and makes a choice. He flees. Magnus tears his way back through the fabric of reality, ripping a hole between Mundus and Aetherius in his escape. This hole becomes the sun, a massive tear through which the pure magic of Aetherius pours into the mortal world. Other Atata follow Magnus in his flight. These are the Magna-G, the star orphans, and each of them tears a smaller hole in their escape. These holes become the stars. This is why magic exists in Mundus at all. It is the light of Aetherius bleeding through the wounds the gods made when they abandoned creation. Mages who study the stars are, in a sense, studying the scars left by divine cowardice or divine wisdom, depending on your perspective. The Atata, who refused to participate in the creation of Mundus, who stayed in Oblivion and kept their full power, become known as the Daedra. They are not evil by nature, though many of them are certainly dangerous. They are simply other, operating by alien logic and pursuing goals that mortals can barely comprehend. Princes like Azura, Boethia, and Mephala will play crucial roles in shaping Tamriel's history, but they do so from outside the mortal plane, reaching in to manipulate events to their liking. With the divine drama concluded, Mundus settles into a more stable form. The planet Nirn cools and solidifies, oceans form, continents take shape. But this process is not peaceful. The earthbones and the lingering spirits of the Aedra manifest as the Ilnifei, the first beings that could be called mortal, though they retain much of their divine heritage. The Ilnifei are divided. Some of them, the old Ilnifei, cling to the old ways and try to maintain the structure and order of their divine existence. Others, the wandering Ilnifei, embrace change and exploration, scattering across Nirn. When these two groups eventually meet, they do not recognize each other as kin. They see only strangers, competitors for resources and territory. The war that erupts between them is cataclysmic. The Elnofe War reshapes the entire surface of Nirn. Continents are shattered. Mountain ranges are thrust up from the sea. Entire landmasses sink beneath the waves. When the dust settles, the world has taken the form that will persist through all recorded history. The old Elnofe become the ancestors of the Mer, the elves. The wandering Elnofe become the ancestors of men, humans. This ancient conflict sets the stage for the racial tensions that will define Tamriel for millennia to come. As the Merethic era progresses, the elves begin their migration to Tamriel. They come from Aldmeris, a continent whose location is now lost to history and myth. Some scholars believe Aldmeris was a real place that sank beneath the ocean. Others think it is a metaphor for the divine realm the elves lost. Regardless, the Aldmer, the first elves, arrive on the shores of Tamriel and establish their civilization. They settle first in the Somerset Isle, a chain of islands off Tamriel's southwest coast. Here they build cities of glass and coral, towers that touch the clouds, and libraries that hold the accumulated wisdom of their people. While the Aldmer spread across Tamriel and the Dwemer delved into their mountain strongholds, another elven civilization was taking root in the heart of the continent. The Aelids, also known as the Heartland High Elves, or Wild Elves, established a vast and powerful empire in the fertile plains and forests of Cyrodiil. These were not mere settlers, but master architects and sorcerers who constructed magnificent cities of white and gold that gleamed like stars across the landscape. The Aelid Empire reached its zenith during the Middle Merethic era, and their ruins still dot Cyrodiil thousands of years later, testament to their architectural genius. The White Gold Tower itself, the great structure at the heart of what would become the Imperial City, was an Aelid construction, built around the mysterious Tower Stone that anchored reality in that region. The Aelids were masters of magic, particularly the manipulation of starlight and the creation of Welkin stones and Varla stones, crystalline objects that could store and channel magical energy. Their cities were engineering marvels, featuring complex systems of aqueducts, magical lighting, and intricate stonework that modern scholars still struggle to replicate. But the Aelids were also cruel masters, and their empire was built on the backs of human slaves, the Needies, whom they captured and subjugated with casual brutality. Aelid culture celebrated Daedric worship, particularly the veneration of Meridia and Molag Bal, and their religious practices often involved dark rituals and the torture of their human captives. Far to the southwest, in the dense forests of Valenwood, the Bosmer were undergoing a transformation that would define their culture for millennia to come. The Bosmer, or Wood Elves, had settled in the great walking trees and forest canopies of Valenwood, but they found themselves in constant conflict with the forest itself, which seemed to resist their presence. The forest of Valenwood was not like other woodlands. It was alive in a way that defied normal understanding, shifting and changing, with trees that could walk and plants that possessed something approaching sentience. The Bosmer were dying out, unable to find harmony with their environment. In their desperation, they turned to Yefre, also known as Jeffrey, the god of the forest and the first of the Earthbones, those spirits who had sacrificed their divine nature to give Nirn its natural laws. Yefre heard their pleas and offered them a bargain, a sacred covenant that would become known as the Green Pact. The terms were strict and uncompromising. The Bosmer would never harm the forests of Valenwood. They would not cut down trees, harvest plants for food, or shape wood into tools or structures. In return, Y'ffre would transform them, making them one with the forest, able to command the plants and animals around them and survive in harmony with the wild. The Bosmer accepted, and Y'ffre reshaped them, giving them their characteristic small stature and their ability to shift their forms, a power known as the Wild Hunt. The Green Pact became the cornerstone of Bosmeri society, and those who followed it strictly became carnivorous by necessity, since they could not eat plant matter from Valenwood itself. This led to some of the more unsettling aspects of Bosmeri culture, including their practice of ritual cannibalism, consuming the bodies of fallen enemies to honor the pact and waste no meat. Not all elves found acceptance in the lands they chose. The Mormer, or Sea Elves, had once dwelt on Somerset Isle alongside the Aldmer, but their ways were different, their magic strange and unsettling to the other elves. Led by their immortal king, Orgnum, the Maormer practiced a form of sorcery that involved the manipulation of weather and the taming of sea serpents, great leviathans that prowled the oceans around Tamriel. The Aldmer of Somerset found the Maormer's practices abhorrent and their king's ambitions threatening. Orgnum claimed that he, not the Aldmeri nobility, should rule over all elves, and his followers grew in number and boldness. The conflict escalated until the Aldmeri rulers made a final decision. They exiled Orgnum and all his followers, banishing them from Somerset Isle forever. The Maormer fled south to the island continent of Piandonea, a mysterious and mist-shrouded land far to the south of Tamriel. There, isolated from the rest of elven civilization, the Maormer developed their own unique culture. Their skin became pale, almost translucent, adapted to the constant fog that surrounded their new home. They bred and trained massive sea serpents as mounts and weapons of war, and they never forgave the Aldmer for their exile. For thousands of years, the Maormer would launch raids and invasions against Somerset Isle and the southern coasts of Tamriel, their ships appearing suddenly out of magical fogs, their sea serpents capsizing vessels and destroying coastal settlements. Orgnum himself proved to be either truly immortal or extraordinarily long-lived, leading his people's naval assaults for millennia, becoming a legendary figure of terror to the Altmer and later to all the peoples of Tamriel's southern shores. In the frozen north, another elven civilization was flourishing in ways that would later be forgotten and denied. The Falmer, or Snow Elves, had claimed the land of Skyrim as their own, and they built a sophisticated civilization in that harsh and beautiful realm. The Falmer were not the twisted, blind creatures that would later haunt the depths of Skyrim's ruins. In the Merethic era, they were a proud and advanced people, with pale skin and white hair adapted to the snow and ice of their homeland. They constructed magnificent cities and temples, including the great shrine of Auriel at what would later be known as the Forgotten Vale, a hidden valley sacred to their worship of the elven god of time. The Falmer were skilled artisans and powerful mages, and their architecture blended seamlessly with the natural ice and stone of Skyrim's mountains. They crafted beautiful works of art, developed complex magical techniques, and maintained a society that rivaled any other elven culture of the era. But the Falmer were also territorial and often hostile to outsiders, viewing Skyrim as their exclusive domain, a gift from Auriel himself. This attitude would bring them into conflict with the humans who were beginning to spread across Tamriel. The Needies, early human inhabitants whose origins remain debated by scholars, began to populate the continent during the Merethic era. Some believe the Needies were native to Tamriel, descendants of the Elnothe who had taken a different path than the elves. Others argue they migrated from Atmora, the frozen continent to the north, in waves that predated the later, more famous migrations. Regardless of their origin, the Needies found themselves in a world dominated by elves, and in most regions, they were subjugated, enslaved, or driven into marginal lands. In Cyrodiil, the Needies suffered terribly under Ayleid rule, worked to death in the construction of those magnificent white cities, tortured in Daedric rituals, and treated as little more than cattle. In other regions, the relationship between elves and humans varied. Some Needies managed to establish independent communities in remote areas. Others served elven masters in exchange for protection or knowledge, but nowhere did humans hold power comparable to the elven civilizations that surrounded them. The situation began to change with the arrival of the Atmorans, a human race from the northern continent of Atmora. Atmora, in the Merethic era, was not yet the frozen wasteland it would later become. It was a harsh but habitable land, home to a warrior culture of humans who revered animal totems and primal gods. As Atmora's climate grew colder and resources scarcer, groups of Atmorans began to migrate south across the Sea of Ghosts to the northern coast of Tamriel. They settled in Skyrim, establishing small communities along the coast and in the river valleys. These early Atmoran settlers were the ancestors of the Nords, though they did not yet call themselves by that name. They brought with them their warrior traditions, their worship of the animal gods, and their fierce independence. The Atmorans were not content to serve as subjects or slaves. They fought to carve out their own territories, and they clashed repeatedly with the Falmer, who viewed these human newcomers as invaders and threats. But the Atmorans faced a threat far greater than the Snow Elves. Dragons, the children of Akatosh, the dragon god of time, had long dwelt in Skyrim and other parts of Tamriel. These were not mindless beasts, but intelligent, immortal beings of immense power, capable of speech and wielding the Thuum, a form of magic that allowed them to reshape reality through the power of their voice. The dragons saw themselves as the rightful rulers of mortals, superior beings who deserved worship and obedience. In Skyrim, they established what became known as the dragon cult, a religious and political system in which dragons were revered as living gods and their chosen priests. Humans granted power and extended life by their dragon masters, ruled over the Atmaran settlements as intermediaries. The dragon priests wore ornate masks and wielded terrible magic, enforcing the dragon's will with an iron fist. For a time, many Atmarans accepted this arrangement. The dragons offered protection from the Falmer and other threats, and the dragon cult brought a kind of order to the scattered human settlements. Great temples were built to honor the dragons, and the dragon priests grew wealthy and powerful. But the dragon's rule was tyrannical, and the dragon priests often abused their power, demanding ever greater tributes and sacrifices from the human population. The dragons themselves were capricious and cruel, destroying entire villages on a whim, hoarding treasure, and treating humans as playthings or food. Resentment grew among the Atmaran people, and eventually, that resentment exploded into open rebellion. The first recorded dragon war began in Skyrim, a conflict that would define the early history of the Nordic people. Humans rose up against their dragon overlords, taking up arms against creatures that could incinerate armies with a word. It seemed like a hopeless cause. The dragons were nearly invincible, their scales harder than steel, their Thuum capable of shattering stone and freezing warriors solid. The rebels were slaughtered in droves, their weapons useless against the dragon's might. Leading the dragons in this war was Alduin, the World Eater, the firstborn of Akatosh and the most powerful of all dragons. Alduin was not merely a dragon, but a force of nature, destined by prophecy to eventually consume the world and end the current Kalpa, or cycle of time. But Alduin had grown proud and tyrannical, more interested in ruling mortals than in fulfilling his cosmic purpose. He commanded the other dragons with absolute authority, and his Thuum was so powerful that he could kill dozens of warriors with a single shout. Under Alduin's leadership, the dragons seemed unstoppable, and the rebellion appeared doomed to fail. But the Atmaran people had caught the attention of the gods themselves. Kine, the Nordic goddess of the storm and the widow of Shor, the chief deity of the Nordic pantheon, took pity on the suffering humans. Kine is known as Kinnereth in the imperial pantheon, one of the 9 divines, but to the ancient Nords, she was a warrior goddess, fierce and protective of her chosen people. Kine could not intervene directly without violating the compact between the gods, but she could offer aid in a more subtle way. She sent Parthernax, a dragon who had grown disillusioned with Alduin's tyranny, to the humans. Parthernax was Alduin's lieutenant, second only to the World Eater in power and authority, but he had begun to question the rightness of the dragon's rule. Influenced by Kine and his own growing conscience, Parthernax betrayed his own kind and descended from the peak of the mountain that would later be called the Throat of the World. There, in secret, he began to teach the leaders of the human rebellion the Thuum, the voice, the same power that the dragons wielded. The Dragon War, a brutal conflict that had raged for centuries, finally reached its climax. Despite their initial reverence, the Nords, under the leadership of figures like Hakon One-Eye, Gormleth Golden Hilt, and Felder the Old, had learned to wield the dragon's own power against them. These legendary heroes known as Tongue Masters had mastered the Thuum, the dragon shout, a powerful form of magic that allowed them to project their very will as devastating sonic force. Their voices became weapons, tearing through dragon scales and challenging the very dominance of Alduin, the World Eater, the firstborn of Akatosh and the harbinger of the end of all things. The Nords, initially overwhelmed by the sheer power and numbers of the dragons, had slowly but surely turned the tide. Hakon One-Eye, a chieftain of immense courage and strategic brilliance, rallied the disparate Nordic clans, forging them into a unified dragon-fighting force. Gormleth Golden Hilt, a warrior of unparalleled skill and ferocity, was said to have personally slain dozens of dragons with her enchanted axe, her shouts echoing across the battlefields. Feldir the Old, a wise and powerful tongue, was the spiritual and tactical anchor of their resistance, his knowledge of the Thuum proving invaluable in developing new techniques to combat the winged beasts. The final confrontation took place at the Throat of the World, the highest peak in Skyrim, a place steeped in ancient magic and legend. Here, the 3 heroes, alongside other brave tongues, faced Alduin himself. It was a battle of epic proportions, the very sky rent by their shouts and the dragon's roars. Despite their combined might, Alduin, a being of immense power, proved too formidable to be truly defeated in the conventional sense. Recognizing that they could not permanently vanquish him, the Nords resorted to a desperate, unprecedented measure. Using an Elder Scroll, a mysterious and incredibly powerful artifact that exists outside of linear time, they performed a ritual to banish Alduin from their era. This act, a testament to their courage and ingenuity, did not destroy Alduin, but rather cast him forward in time, removing him from their present and buying Tamriel a reprieve from his destructive wrath. The Elder Scroll, a relic of immense cosmic significance, warped the fabric of reality, sending the World Eater into an unknown future, thus ending the immediate threat of the Dragon War, but leaving the door open for his eventual return. This momentous event marked a turning point in Nordic history, solidifying their identity as a resilient and powerful people, capable of challenging even the gods. Centuries before the Dragon War's conclusion, another pivotal migration had begun. From the frostbitten primordial lands of Atmora, a continent shrouded in ice and legend to the north of Tamriel, came Ysgramor, a legendary figure whose name is synonymous with the very foundation of Nord civilization in Skyrim. He led a band of intrepid explorers known as the Companions across the treacherous Sea of Ghosts. Their motivations were simple: to seek new lands, abundant resources, and a fresh start away from the ever-encroaching ice and dwindling game of their ancestral home. These early Nords were hardy, resourceful people, accustomed to harsh conditions and constant struggle. Ysgramor, a skilled navigator and charismatic leader, guided them through perilous waters, eventually making landfall on the northern shores of what would become Skyrim. They were not the first humans to reach Tamriel, as other proto-human tribes had already established themselves in various regions, but Ysgramor's arrival marked the beginning of a distinct and powerful cultural force that would shape the destiny of the continent. Upon their arrival, the Companions, under Ysgramor's guidance, began to establish settlements. One of their most significant early endeavors was the founding of Sarthal, located in the inhospitable northern reaches of Skyrim. Sarthal was not just a settlement, it was envisioned as the first great Nord city, a symbol of their ambition and a testament to their ability to carve out a home in a foreign land. It was a thriving hub of activity, a beacon of human civilization in a land largely dominated by the established elven races, particularly the Snow Elves, or Falmer, who had long inhabited the region. The Nords, with their robust physiques and aggressive expansion, quickly came into conflict with the Falmer, who saw their new neighbors as encroaching invaders. The tensions simmered, fueled by cultural differences, territorial disputes, and a fundamental clash of ideologies. This simmering animosity erupted into a brutal, defining moment in Nord history known as the Night of Tears. Without warning, the Falmer launched a devastating, coordinated attack on Sarthal. It was a night of unimaginable horror, a massacre that left the nascent Nord city in ruins and its inhabitants slaughtered. The Falmer, driven by a desperate desire to reclaim their lands and eradicate the human threat, showed no mercy. The scale of the destruction was immense, and the loss of life, including Ysgramor's own family, was a profound blow to the fledgling Nord community. The Night of Tears was not merely an act of war, it was an act of existential terror, a clear message from the Falmer that they would not tolerate the Nord presence. This event scarred the collective memory of the Nords, instilling in them a deep-seated hatred and distrust of the Mer, a sentiment that would echo through centuries of Tamrielic history. Ysgramor, devastated by the loss of his family and the destruction of his city, swore vengeance. He immediately returned to Atmora, not in defeat, but with a singular purpose: to gather a mighty army, a force capable of crushing the Falmer and avenging the atrocities of the Night of Tears. He rallied his kinsmen, recounting the horrors of Sarthal and igniting their ancestral warrior spirit. From the icy wastes of Atmora, he assembled the legendary 500 Companions, a formidable host of elite warriors, each a master of axe and shield, and each burning with a desire for retribution. This was not merely a military expedition, it was a crusade, a holy war against those who had dared to slaughter their kin. The return of Ysgramor and his 500 marked a dramatic escalation of the conflict, transforming it from a territorial dispute into a full-blown war of annihilation. Ysgramor, at the head of his 500 companions, returned to Skyrim with a vengeance. What followed was a brutal, protracted war, a campaign of systematic eradication against the Falmer. The Nords, fueled by righteous fury and superior martial prowess, swept across Skyrim, driving the Snow Elves from their ancestral strongholds. This was not a war of conquest in the traditional sense. It was a war of retribution, a campaign designed to utterly break the Falmer's power and ensure they could never again threaten Nord settlements. The Nords, with their superior weaponry and their mastery of the battlefield, proved to be an unstoppable force. They systematically dismantled Falmer resistance, pushing them further and further into the harsh, unforgiving corners of Skyrim. Many Falmer were slain in battle, their cities razed, and their cultural artifacts destroyed. This period, often referred to as the Return or the War of the First Era, established the Nords as the dominant power in Skyrim, forever altering the demographic and political landscape of the region. Facing utter annihilation, the remaining Falmer, desperate and broken, sought refuge in the only place they believed could protect them: the vast, subterranean cities of the Dwemer, also known as the Deep Elves or Dwarves. The Dwemer, a highly advanced and enigmatic race of Mer, were renowned for their mastery of engineering, metallurgy, and arcane sciences. They lived in sprawling, technologically sophisticated underground complexes, their civilization a marvel of steam-powered automatons and intricate mechanisms. In their desperation, the Falmer appealed to the Dwemer for sanctuary, offering their services and knowledge in exchange for protection from the relentless Nord onslaught. It was a Faustian bargain, one that would lead to a fate far worse than death. The Dwemer, despite their advanced intellect, were a pragmatic and often ruthless people. They saw an opportunity in the Falmer's plight, not to offer true sanctuary but to exploit them. The Dwemer betrayed the trust of the desperate Snow Elves, enslaving them en masse. To ensure their complete subservience and prevent any future rebellion, the Dwemer embarked on a horrific experiment. They forced the Falmer to consume a highly toxic hallucinogenic fungus that grew in the deepest reaches of their underground cities. This fungus, over generations, had a devastating effect on the Falmer. It slowly but irrevocably blinded them, turning their once keen eyes into milky, useless orbs. It also deformed their bodies, twisting their elegant elven features into grotesque, hunched forms, stripping them of their former beauty and intelligence. This cruel act, a testament to the Dwemer's cold pragmatism, transformed the once proud snow elves into the degenerate, feral creatures known today as the Falmer, forever condemning them to a life of darkness and madness beneath the surface of Tamriel. While the Dwemer were busy with their horrific experiments on the Falmer, another monumental undertaking was beginning in the distant land of Resdain, the ancestral home of the Chimer, now known as Morrowind. Beneath the colossal peak of Red Mountain, a site of immense magical and geological activity, the Dwemer began their most ambitious and ultimately catastrophic endeavor, their experiments with the Heart of Lorkhan. The Heart of Lorkhan was not merely a powerful artifact, it was the divine spark, the very essence of the dead god Lorkhan, whose sacrifice formed the mortal realm of Mundus. It pulsed with unimaginable power, a raw, primordial force that held the potential for both creation and destruction on a cosmic scale. The Dwemer, driven by their insatiable curiosity and their desire to transcend the limitations of mortality, sought to harness this power for their own purposes. They constructed an intricate network of machinery and magical conduits around the heart, intending to tap into its energy to create a new god, a brass god, Numidium, that would grant them ultimate power and immortality. These experiments, shrouded in secrecy and fueled by hubris, would eventually lead to the mysterious disappearance of the entire Dwemer race, leaving behind only their empty cities and their enslaved Falmer. As the Merethic era drew to a close, the foundational events of Tamriel's history had largely played out. The dragons had been banished, the Nords had established their dominance in Skyrim, and the Falmer had been tragically transformed. Distinct cultures had begun to solidify, with the various elven and human races developing unique traditions, languages, and belief systems. Early human civilizations were taking root, laying the groundwork for the empires and kingdoms that would rise and fall in the ages to come. The stage was set for the tumultuous First Era, an age of empires, great wars, and the continued shaping of the continent of Tamriel. The Merethic era, a time of myth and legend, had forged the very essence of the world, leaving behind a legacy of heroism, tragedy, and the enduring echoes of ancient conflicts. Our journey through Tamriel's history now brings us to a period of unprecedented chaos and upheaval, a time known as the Interregnum, specifically the year 2E 582, as depicted in the Elder Scrolls Online. Following the collapse of the Alessian Empire and the subsequent fragmentation of central authority, Cyrodiil, the heartland of the empire, found itself under the rule of the Longhouse Emperors. This dynasty, originating from the Reach, a wild and untamed region between High Rock and Skyrim, brought with them a distinct cultural and political flavor that was alien to many of the established imperial traditions. Their reign was marked by widespread instability, a direct consequence of their struggle to assert control over a fractured continent and a populace deeply wary of their foreign customs and often brutal methods. This weakened imperial authority created a power vacuum, a void that ambitious individuals and even more ambitious Daedric princes were all too eager to fill. Among these ambitious figures was Mannimarco, the King of Worms, a powerful necromancer of unparalleled skill and a former student of Vanus Galerion, the founder of the Mages Guild. Mannimarco had long harbored desires for godhood and absolute power. His machinations were subtle, spanning centuries, but in this era, they reached their terrifying zenith. He secretly forged a dark alliance with Molag Bal, the Daedric Prince of Domination, the Lord of Brutality, and the King of Rape, whose realm, Cold Harbor, was a twisted mirror image of Nirn, filled with suffering and tormented souls. Molag Bal, ever eager to expand his dominion, saw in Mannimarco a willing and highly capable instrument for his grand design, the Plane Meld. This cataclysmic event was Molag Bal's audacious attempt to merge Tamriel, the mortal realm, with his own plane of existence. The consequences of such a merger would be catastrophic, transforming Tamriel into a desolate wasteland, a new Cold Harbor, where all life would be enslaved and tormented for eternity. The Planemeld manifested across Tamriel in a variety of horrifying ways. Dark anchors, massive otherworldly chains, would periodically descend from the sky, ripping open portals to Cold Harbor. Through these portals, Molag Bal's Daedric legions, including Dremora, Scamps, and other terrifying creatures, poured forth, spreading destruction and terror. Their primary objective beyond conquest was the harvesting of souls. These snatched souls were then dragged back to Cold Harbor, destined for eternal torment and servitude to the Daedric Prince. Entire villages were razed, cities besieged, and countless innocents lost their lives, or, worse, their very essence. The very fabric of reality seemed to strain under the immense pressure of this interplanar invasion, and the skies above Tamriel were frequently marred by strange, ominous celestial phenomena, further signaling the encroaching doom. Manamarco's role in this grand scheme was pivotal. He was not merely an ally, but the architect of a crucial ritual that would facilitate the plane meld. His ultimate act of betrayal involved the then emperor, Varen Aquilarios. Varen, a devout worshipper of Akatosh, the dragon god of time, sought to legitimize his rule and restore stability to the empire. He was convinced by Manamarco that a ritual involving the Amulet of Kings, a powerful artifact intrinsically linked to the dragonfires and the protection of Tamriel, would allow him to rekindle the dragonfires and thus gain divine endorsement. However, Manamarco's true intention was to subvert this ritual for Molag Bal's benefit. During the ritual, rather than rekindling the dragonfires, Manamarco's dark magic, empowered by Molag Bal, caused a catastrophic event known as the Soul Burst. This cataclysmic magical explosion not only shattered the Amulet of Kings into fragments, but also tore the very soul from countless individuals across Tamriel, including, most significantly, our protagonist, the Vestige. This event sent shockwaves across the continent, both literally and magically, further destabilizing the already precarious political landscape and plunging Tamriel into even deeper despair. The Vestige, now a soulless hero, awakens in the grim and desolate landscape of Coldharbour, Molag Bal's realm. Stripped of their soul, they are nothing more than a sacrifice, one of many, destined for eternal suffering in the Prince of Domination's twisted prison, the Wailing Prison. This initial experience is one of profound disorientation and fear, as the Vestige grapples with their new, terrifying reality. The Wailing Prison is a place of unimaginable torment, where the souls of the damned are subjected to endless torture and degradation by Molag Bal's Daedric servants. The Vestige's journey through this hellish environment is a testament to their resilience and innate heroism, even without their soul. It is within the confines of this infernal prison that the Vestige encounters Lyris Titanborn, a formidable half-giant warrior. Lyris, a woman of immense strength and unwavering loyalty, had been imprisoned in Coldharbour for her defiance against Molag Bal's forces. Her presence provides a beacon of hope for the Vestige in the otherwise hopeless environment. Together, they navigate the treacherous corridors of the Wailing Prison, battling Daedric creatures and overcoming various obstacles. Lyris's combat prowess and knowledge of Coldharbour prove invaluable in their desperate bid for freedom. Her unwavering determination and fierce protectiveness of the Vestige quickly establish her as a crucial ally and friend. Their escape from the Wailing Prison is not achieved alone. They are guided by a mysterious figure known only as the Prophet. This enigmatic, blind old man possesses an uncanny understanding of the unfolding events and a deep, if cryptic, knowledge of the Vestige's destiny. He acts as a spiritual and strategic guide, providing crucial insights and directions that allow the Vestige and Lyris to evade their Daedric captors and ultimately escape the confines of Coldharbour. The Prophet's true identity and motivations remain shrouded in mystery for a time, but his unwavering belief in the Vestige's potential to stop the plane meld is a constant source of encouragement. He reveals that the Vestige's soulless state is not a curse, but a unique condition that makes them resistant to Molag Bal's influence, thus making them the only one capable of truly challenging the Daedric prince. Upon their return to Tamriel, the Vestige and their companions find themselves embroiled in the complex political landscape of the Interregnum. They soon encounter Abnur Tharn, the Grand Chancellor of the Elder Council and a powerful sorcerer of immense intellect and cunning. Abnur Tharn is a scion of the formidable Tharn family, a lineage steeped in imperial politics and known for their ambition and often Machiavellian tendencies. Initially, Abnur Tharn views the Vestige with suspicion, seeing them as a rogue element and a potential threat to his own carefully constructed power base. His arrogance and self-interest often lead him to oppose the Vestige's efforts, believing that he alone possesses the wisdom and power to navigate the crisis. However, as the true extent of Molag Bal's threat becomes undeniable, and as he witnesses the Vestige's unwavering resolve and growing power, Abnur Tharn reluctantly becomes an ally. His vast knowledge of imperial history, politics, and magic, though often delivered with a condescending tone, proves to be an invaluable asset in the fight against the plane meld. His understanding of the Amulet of Kings and its significance is particularly crucial. It is through the Prophet and Abnur Tharn's explanations that the Vestige comes to fully understand the nature of their soulless condition. They learn that the Soul Burst, orchestrated by Manamarco, was not just a random act of destruction, but a deliberate ritual designed to sever their soul from their body, leaving them vulnerable to Molag Bal's influence and making them a perfect sacrifice. However, the ritual was imperfect, or perhaps the Vestige's innate resilience was too strong, preventing full enslavement. This soulless state, while initially a terrifying burden, is ultimately revealed to be a unique advantage. Without a soul to claim, Molag Bal's power over the Vestige is significantly diminished, making them immune to certain Daedric enchantments and manipulations that would affect others. This revelation transforms their perceived weakness into a formidable strength, solidifying their role as Tamriel's last hope. With a clear understanding of their purpose, the Vestige begins to gather allies, forming what would become known as the Five Companions. This diverse group of heroes is united by their shared desire to stop Molag Bal and restore balance to Tamriel. Alongside Lyris Titanborn, the steadfast half-giant, and the enigmatic Prophet, they are joined by Sai Sahan, a formidable Redguard swordmaster and former captain of the Imperial Dragon Guard. Sai Sahan is a master of blades, a paragon of honor and discipline, and a devout follower of the ancient Redguard warrior traditions. His unwavering loyalty to Emperor Varan Aquilarios, despite the Emperor's disappearance, drives his participation in the quest. The 5 companions represent a powerful blend of strength, wisdom, and diverse skills, each member bringing a unique perspective and capability to their monumental task. Their primary objective, as revealed by the Prophet and confirmed by Abner Tharin's historical knowledge, is to recover the Amulet of Kings. This sacred artifact, a symbol of the Dragonborn Emperors and a conduit for Akatosh's divine power, is absolutely essential for stopping the plane meld. The Amulet of Kings, as mentioned earlier, was shattered during the Soul Burst, its fragments scattered across various dangerous locations. The companions understand that only by reassembling the amulet and rekindling the dragonfires can they hope to sever Molag Bal's connection to Tamriel and prevent its complete subjugation. Their quest for the amulet becomes the central driving force of their early adventures, leading them across the length and breadth of Tamriel. As the Vestige and the 5 companions embark on their quest, they are forced to navigate a Tamriel deeply divided by conflict. The widespread instability caused by the Longhouse Emperors and the Planemeld has exacerbated existing tensions between the various races and factions. The continent is embroiled in the Alliance War, a brutal 3-way conflict for control of the Imperial City, and, by extension, the Ruby Throne. The Vestige, in their travels, inevitably encounters these 3 major alliances, each with its own motivations, ideologies, and leaders. The first of these alliances is the Daggerfall Covenant, a powerful political and military union comprising the Bretons, Redguards, and Orcs. Led by High Cain Emmerich of Wayrest, a shrewd and charismatic Breton ruler, the Daggerfall Covenant seeks to restore the Second Empire under Breton rule. They believe that their cultural sophistication, martial prowess, and strong mercantile ties make them the most suitable candidates to bring order and stability back to a fractured Tamriel. Their capital, Wayrest, a bustling port city in High Rock, serves as a hub of trade and political intrigue. The Bretons, known for their magical aptitude and chivalric traditions, form the intellectual and magical backbone of the Covenant. The Redguards, with their unmatched skill in swordsmanship and fierce independence, provide the military might. The Orcs, a proud and resilient people, contribute their formidable strength and engineering expertise. The Covenant's ambition is driven by a desire to bring a new golden age to Tamriel, one free from the chaos of the interregnum, but their methods are often pragmatic and sometimes ruthless, reflecting the harsh realities of their war-torn world. Their focus is on establishing a strong, centralized government that can effectively defend against both internal strife and external threats, particularly the Daedric invasion. While the Vestige grappled with their soul's predicament, the political landscape of Tamriel continued its descent into chaos. The interregnum, a period of unprecedented instability following the assassination of Emperor Varan Aquilarios, saw 3 great alliances rise to vie for control of the Ruby Throne, the symbolic seat of power in Cyrodiil. Each alliance, driven by distinct ideologies and historical grievances, believed themselves to be the rightful inheritors of the Empire. First, the Ebonheart Pact, a fragile and often contentious alliance formed in the aftermath of the Akaviri invasion, united the proud Nords of Skyrim, the resourceful Dwemer of Morrowind, and the enigmatic Argonians of Black Marsh. Their unity, forged in the crucible of shared adversity, was a testament to the dire circumstances facing Tamriel. The Nords, fiercely independent and steeped in martial tradition, sought to re-establish a strong centralized empire, reminiscent of their own ancient dynasties, and believed themselves best suited to lead it. The Dwemer, or Dark Elves, still reeling from the eruption of Red Mountain and the subsequent Argonian invasion, saw the pact as a means to protect their ancestral lands and reclaim their former glory, their pragmatic leaders recognizing the necessity of cooperation. The Argonians, long-suffering and often misunderstood, joined the pact out of a desire for self-preservation and a shared commitment to defending their homelands from external threats, their unique connection to the histories guiding their decisions. Their collective aim was to end the imperial succession crisis by placing a worthy ruler on the Ruby Throne, one who would respect the autonomy of their diverse cultures while ensuring the stability of the continent. They saw the other alliances as dangerous extremists, either too obsessed with ancient prophecies or too eager to impose their own racial superiority. In stark contrast, the Aldmeri Dominion, a resurgent power rooted in the ancient traditions of the Altmer, or High Elves, presented a formidable challenge. Led by the charismatic and politically astute Queen Aedra of Alinor, the Dominion comprised the Altmer, the Bosmer, Wood Elves of Valenwood, and the Khajiit, Catfolk of Elsewhere. The Altmer, with their long lifespans and deep connection to magic, believed themselves to be the rightful heirs of Tamriel, having preserved the purest form of elven culture and tradition. They viewed the human races as short-sighted and prone to chaos, believing that only elven leadership could restore order and prevent Tamriel from succumbing to further decline. Queen Aedra, a formidable diplomat and warrior, envisioned a new golden age under elven rule, one where ancient prophecies would be fulfilled and the continent would be guided towards enlightenment. The Bosmer, bound by ancient treaties and a deep respect for the Altmer's wisdom, contributed their exceptional archery skills and knowledge of their dense forests. The Khajiit, grateful for the Dominion's assistance during a devastating plague, offered their agility, cunning, and mercantile prowess. The Dominion's ultimate goal was to restore elven dominance, believing it to be the only path to true peace and prosperity for all of Tamriel. They saw the Ebonheart Pact as a chaotic mix of races incapable of true leadership, and the Daggerfall Covenant as a misguided attempt at human supremacy. Finally, the Daggerfall Covenant, a maritime alliance of the Bretons of High Rock, the Redguards of Hammerfell, and the Orcs of Orsinium, sought to re-establish a benevolent mercantile empire based on trade and justice. The Bretons, known for their diplomatic skills and proficiency in magic, desired a stable, prosperous Tamriel where commerce could flourish unhindered. They envisioned an empire founded on shared laws and mutual respect, rather than racial dominance or ancient prophecies. The Redguards, proud and honorable warriors, brought their formidable martial prowess and a strong sense of justice to the Covenant. Their loyalty to their traditions and their commitment to defending their people made them fierce allies. The Orcs, often marginalized and misunderstood, found a place of acceptance and respect within the Covenant, their strength and craftsmanship proving invaluable. King Emeric of Wayrest, a shrewd and pragmatic ruler, led the Covenant with a vision of a unified Tamriel under a just and prosperous empire. They viewed the Aldmeri Dominion as arrogant supremacists and the Ebonheart Pact as a dangerous, unstable coalition. These three powerful alliances, each with their own strengths, weaknesses, and deeply held convictions, were locked in a brutal, continent-spanning conflict known as the Alliance War. The Vestige, in their struggle against Molag Bal, found themselves thrust into the heart of this war, their actions often influencing the delicate balance of power. While the Vestige's primary focus remained the defeat of the Daedric Prince, the ongoing conflict served as a constant, brutal backdrop to their personal quest. The Vestige's journey to confront Mannimarco, the King of Worms, took them deep into his stronghold, a place of necromantic horrors and unspeakable rituals. This was no mere skirmish, but a desperate infiltration into the very heart of his power. The air was thick with the stench of death and decay, the walls echoing with the whispers of tortured souls. Mannimarco, a master of dark magic and a former student of Vanis Galerion, had long harbored ambitions of godhood, and his pact with Molag Bal was a crucial step in his twisted ascent. The Vestige, guided by the spectral projection of the Prophet and aided by their growing network of allies, navigated treacherous traps and confronted legions of Mannimarco's undead minions. They faced grotesque flesh Atronachs, reanimated corpses, and powerful Lich Lords, each encounter a testament to Mannimarco's depraved mastery of necromancy. Upon finally reaching Mannimarco's inner sanctum, the Vestige confronted the King of Worms himself. The confrontation was a battle of wills and raw magical power. Mannimarco, cloaked in dark energy, taunted the Vestige, revealing more about his grand scheme. He gloated about his pact with Molag Bal, detailing how he had orchestrated the ritual that severed the Vestige's soul, all to weaken the barriers between Nirn and Cold Harbor. He reveled in the chaos he had unleashed, believing himself to be on the cusp of true divine power. He explained his ultimate goal, to usurp Molag Bal's position and become the new Daedric Prince of Domination, or perhaps even a god of death on Nirn itself. He saw the Vestige as a mere pawn, a necessary sacrifice in his elaborate plan. The Vestige, fueled by a righteous fury and a desperate desire for their soul's return, fought with renewed determination. They dodged dark bolts of energy, countered necromantic spells, and pressed their attack, forcing Mannimarco to reveal the true extent of his power. In a climactic struggle, the Vestige managed to reclaim the Amulet of Kings, a powerful artifact intrinsically linked to the dragon bloodline of emperors and vital for maintaining the barrier between Mundus and Oblivion. The amulet, glowing with a faint, ethereal light, seemed to pulse with ancient power in the Vestige's hands. However, despite this victory, Mannimarco, ever cunning and resourceful, managed to escape, vanishing into the shadows before the Vestige could deliver a decisive blow. His escape was a bitter pill, a reminder that the true architect of the Planemeld remained at large, his dark schemes far from concluded. His retreat was a strategic one, allowing him to regroup and continue his machinations from the shadows, undoubtedly planning his next move against both Molag Bal and the Vestige. With the Amulet of Kings secured and Mannimarco temporarily thwarted, the Vestige and their allies knew that the ultimate confrontation awaited them. The time had come to journey to the Heart's Grief, the very core of Molag Bal's realm of Cold Harbor, to confront the Daedric Prince of Domination directly. This was no ordinary journey. Cold Harbor was a twisted, desolate reflection of Nirn, a realm of perpetual torment and despair, where Molag Bal's will was absolute. The landscape was a horrific parody of Tamriel, with structures built from the bones of mortals and the very ground oozing with corruption. The sky was a perpetual twilight, illuminated by the ominous glow of Molag Bal's dark anchors. The Vestige and their companions, including Lyris Titanborn, Sai Sahan, and the Spectral Prophet, braved the horrors of this Daedric plane, battling legions of Daedra, including towering Daedroth, agile scamps, and formidable Sivkin. Each step was a test of their resolve, their courage, and their unwavering determination to save Nirn. They navigated burning wastes, frozen tundras, and cities of torment, each designed to break the spirits of mortals. Upon reaching the Heart's Grief, the Vestige prepared for the final, desperate battle. This was not merely a fight for their soul, but for the very existence of Tamriel. Molag Bal, a being of immense power and malevolent intent, awaited them, his presence radiating an oppressive aura that threatened to crush the spirit. He was a colossal figure, his form shifting and reforming with raw, dark energy, his voice a thunderous roar that echoed through the desolate realm. He taunted the Vestige, mocking their mortal arrogance and their futile attempts to defy a Daedric prince. He reveled in the suffering he had inflicted, believing himself to be on the verge of claiming Nirn as his own. It was here, in the heart of Cold Harbor, that the Amulet of Kings proved to be the pivotal artifact. The Vestige, drawing upon their innate connection to the divine, used the amulet to channel the power of Akatosh, the dragon god of time and the chief deity of the divines. Akatosh, the very source of the dragon blood that flowed through the veins of true emperors, represented order, stability, and the cyclical nature of existence, a direct antithesis to Molag Bal's chaotic domination. The amulet pulsed with a brilliant golden light, channeling the divine essence of Akatosh directly into the Vestige. This infusion of divine power transformed the Vestige, granting them a temporary but immense surge of strength and resilience. Their blows struck with the force of a divine wrath. Their defenses became impenetrable, and their spirit burned with an unyielding light. With the aid of the Amulet of Kings and the unwavering support of their companions, who fought valiantly against Molag Bal's formidable Daedric lieutenants, the Vestige engaged the Daedric prince in an epic, reality-shattering battle. Lyris Titanborn, wielding her massive axe, cleaved through Daedra with ferocious strength, her unwavering loyalty a beacon in the darkness. Sai Sahan, the master of the sword, moved with lightning speed, his blades dancing through the air, deflecting Molag Bal's dark magic. Even the spectral prophet, though unable to directly engage, offered guidance and spiritual support, his ancient wisdom a crucial asset. The battle was a maelstrom of divine light and Daedric shadow, a clash of cosmic forces that threatened to tear Cold Harbor apart. The Vestige, empowered by Akatosh, struck at Molag Bal, their attacks fueled by the collective hope of Tamriel. They exploited his weaknesses, identified through their previous encounters and the prophet's guidance, and pushed him back, slowly but surely. In a final decisive blow, the Vestige, channeling the full might of Akatosh through the Amulet of Kings, managed to thwart Molag Bal's plans. The Daedric prince, his form flickering and his power temporarily diminished, roared in frustrated rage. He was not destroyed, for a Daedric prince cannot truly be killed, but he was dealt a crushing defeat. The plane meld, the insidious process of merging Nirn with Cold Harbor, was halted, its progress reversed. Molag Bal was temporarily banished from Tamriel, his influence receding like a dark tide. The anchors that had tethered the two realms together dissolved, and the fabric of reality began to mend. The immediate threat to Nirn was averted, a monumental victory achieved through the courage and sacrifice of the Vestige and their allies. With Molag Bal banished and the plane meld halted, the Vestige's soul was finally restored, a golden light enveloping them as their essence returned to their body. The exact process of this restoration, however, and its long-term effects remained somewhat mysterious. While the Vestige was whole again, the experience of being soulless, of existing as a ghostly echo, had undoubtedly left an indelible mark. The trauma of the ordeal, the exposure to Daedric energies, and the channeling of divine power had subtly altered them, though the full extent of these changes would only become apparent over time. Perhaps they gained a deeper understanding of the soul, or a unique resistance to Daedric influence. The mystery surrounding their restored souls served as a lingering consequence of their epic journey. Despite the monumental victory against Molag Bal, the political turmoil on Tamriel was far from over. The three alliances, having temporarily set aside some of their differences to combat the plane meld, quickly resumed their bitter struggle for dominance. The imperial city, the ancient heart of the empire and the symbolic seat of power, became the focal point of the renewed conflict. Its strategic location in Cyrodiil, coupled with the prestige of the Ruby Throne, made it the ultimate prize. The imperial city, once a beacon of civilization, was transformed into a brutal battleground. Each of the three alliances poured their resources and their soldiers into the fight, attempting to seize control of the White Gold Tower and crown their own emperor. The streets ran red with blood, the ancient buildings scarred by siege weapons and magical attacks. The sewers became clandestine pathways for infiltrators, the districts contested territories, and the very air thick with the sounds of war. The alliances established their own bases within the city's districts, launching relentless assaults and desperate defenses. The goal was not merely to conquer, but to hold the White Gold Tower long enough for their chosen leader to undergo the ritual of ascension, a process that would symbolically legitimize their claim to the Ruby Throne. This was a war of attrition, a test of military might, strategic cunning, and sheer willpower. The Vestige's actions, their heroic defeat of Molag Bal, and their role in saving Tamriel from the plane meld undoubtedly inspired hope across the continent. Tales of their bravery spread, offering a glimmer of light in the pervasive darkness of the interregnum. They became a symbol of resistance, a testament to the power of a single individual to defy even the most formidable threats. However, this inspiration, while potent, was not enough to heal the deep-seated divisions and political instability that plagued Tamriel. The alliances continued their destructive war, each convinced of their own righteousness, their own claim to the imperial city. The political landscape remained fractured and unstable, a volatile mix of ambition, ancient grievances, and a desperate struggle for power. The Vestige, having saved the world from a Daedric invasion, now watched as mortals tore it apart from within, the future of Tamriel hanging precariously in the balance. The stage was set for a prolonged period of conflict, with no clear end in sight, and the echoes of the plane meld still reverberating across a war-torn continent. The defeat of Molag Bal was a victory, but it was not the end of the struggle for Tamriel. It was merely the end of one chapter, and the beginning of another, equally perilous one. Having navigated the tumultuous Second Era, a period marked by Molag Bal's attempted planar fusion and the subsequent Alliance War, we now transition into a new chapter of Tamriel's history, one that directly sets the stage for the very first Elder Scrolls game. The Third Era, specifically beginning in the year 3E 389, ushers in a decade-long crisis known as the Imperial Simulacrum, a time of profound deception and peril that would shape the fate of the Empire. At the heart of this unfolding drama is Jagar Tharn, a figure of immense magical power and even greater ambition. As the Imperial Battle Mage, Tharn held a position of significant influence within the Emperor's inner circle, a trust he would ultimately betray in the most insidious way imaginable. His target was none other than Emperor Uriel Septim VII, the reigning monarch of the Tamrielic Empire. Tharn, through a masterful act of arcane manipulation, managed to imprison the Emperor within a pocket dimension of Oblivion, the chaotic plane of existence home to Daedric princes and their myriad realms. This was no mere banishment. It was a complete removal from Nirn, the mortal plane, leaving the Empire leaderless and vulnerable. With the true Emperor spirited away, Tharn moved swiftly to solidify his control. He employed his formidable magical prowess to create a doppelganger, a perfect magical duplicate of Uriel Septim VII. This impostor, crafted with such skill that even close advisors were fooled, was designed to walk among the people, to sit upon the ruby throne, and to issue decrees, all while Tharn secretly pulled the strings. The true nature of this deception, the sheer audacity of it, lay in its seamless execution. The doppelganger mimicked the Emperor's mannerisms, his voice, even his memories, ensuring that the charade would hold for as long as necessary. Tharn's goal was not simply to rule from the shadows, but to seize the power of the Empire for himself, using the doppelganger as a puppet to enact his will and consolidate his authority. The Imperial City, the beating heart of the Empire, became a stage for Tharn's elaborate play, with the entire continent of Tamriel as his unwitting audience. The years that followed would see the Empire slowly begin to unravel, not through overt conquest, but through subtle shifts in policy and the quiet accumulation of power by the false Emperor. However, even the most meticulously crafted plans can unravel, and Tharn's treachery was not without its witnesses. His apprentice, a skilled sorceress named Rhea Silmani, had, through diligent observation and perhaps a touch of unfortunate curiosity, uncovered the full extent of her master's deceit. She knew of the Emperor's imprisonment, of the doppelganger, and of Tharn's ultimate ambitions. Such knowledge in the hands of someone with a conscience was a grave threat to Tharn's carefully constructed illusion. Recognizing the danger she posed, Tharn, without hesitation, murdered Rhea Silmane. He believed he had silenced her, that her knowledge would die with her, leaving his usurpation unchallenged. The act was cold, calculated, and entirely in keeping with his ruthless nature. He sought to erase all traces of his crime, to ensure that no one would ever learn the truth behind the Emperor's sudden and seemingly uncharacteristic actions. Yet, even in death, Rhea Silmane's will to expose Tharn's villainy persisted. Her spirit, unbound from its mortal coil, refused to fade. Instead, it clung to Nirn, driven by a powerful sense of duty and a burning desire for justice. It was this spectral form that would appear to a prisoner, an individual known only as the Eternal Champion, languishing in a dungeon cell beneath the Imperial City. This champion, whose true identity and origin remained largely shrouded in mystery, was an unwitting pawn in Tharn's larger scheme. Their imprisonment, likely orchestrated by Tharn himself to remove any potential threats or inconvenient witnesses, ironically placed them in the perfect position to become the instrument of his downfall. Rhea Silmane's ethereal form materialized before the champion, a ghostly apparition in the dim confines of the prison. Her voice, though faint and tinged with the sorrow of her untimely demise, carried an urgent message. She revealed the full scope of Tharn's deception, the true Emperor imprisoned in Oblivion, the impostor on the throne, and Tharn's ultimate aim to seize control of the entire Empire. She explained that the only way to defeat Tharn and restore Uriel Septim VII to his rightful place was to reassemble the legendary Staff of Chaos. This powerful artifact, imbued with immense magical properties, was the key to exposing Tharn and breaking his hold over Tamriel. Silmane, in her spectral form, became the champion's guide and mentor, a beacon of hope in a time of profound darkness. With Rhea, Silmane's spectral assistants, the Eternal Champion, a prisoner with no name and no past, managed to escape their confinement in the Imperial City. The escape itself was a testament to the champion's inherent strength and resourcefulness, aided by Silmane's otherworldly guidance. Free from the dungeon's clutches, the champion was now faced with a daunting task: to locate and reassemble the Staff of Chaos. However, Silmane revealed a crucial detail that complicated the quest significantly. The staff had been shattered into 8 distinct pieces. These fragments, each imbued with a portion of the staff's power, had been scattered across the vast and diverse continent of Tamriel by Tharn, a deliberate act to ensure its power could never be used against him. This meant the champion's journey would be one of epic proportions, traversing all the provinces of the Empire, facing countless dangers and battling formidable foes. The quest for the Staff of Chaos began in earnest. The first destination, guided by Rhea Silmane's spectral whispers, was the Somerset Isle, the ancestral home of the Altmer, or High Elves. This idyllic, yet often haughty province was known for its stunning crystal tower, a marvel of elven architecture and magical potency. It was within the hallowed halls or perhaps the hidden depths of this magnificent structure that the first piece of the shattered staff lay concealed. The champion's journey to Somerset would have involved navigating the intricate politics of the High Elves, perhaps facing their inherent distrust of outsiders, and overcoming the magical defenses guarding the Crystal Tower. The retrieval of this first piece was a crucial step, a tangible sign that the task, however monumental, was achievable. It also served as an introduction to the diverse landscapes and cultures that the champion would encounter across Tamriel. From the sun-drenched shores of Somerset, the champion's path led them to the verdant, mystical forests of Valenwood, the domain of the Bosmer, or Wood Elves. This province was characterized by its towering sentient trees, most notably the colossal Elden Root, a living city and a sacred site for the Bosmer. Deep within the ancient, sprawling root systems of this magnificent tree, or perhaps within a hidden chamber carved into its very heart, another piece of the Staff of Chaos awaited discovery. The journey through Valenwood would have been a stark contrast to the refined elegance of Somerset, requiring the champion to adapt to the wild, untamed nature of the forests, and perhaps even contend with the unique customs and traditions of the Wood Elves, including their strict adherence to the Green Pact. The retrieval of this piece would have further solidified the champion's resolve, demonstrating their ability to adapt to different environments and overcome diverse challenges. Next, the champion ventured into the arid, sun-baked lands of Elsewhere, the homeland of the feline Khajiit. This province, known for its vast deserts, moon sugar plantations, and ancient, often crumbling cities, held a staff piece within the ruins of Orcrest. Orcrest, once a thriving Khajiit settlement, now lay in disrepair, its secrets guarded by time and perhaps by the lingering spirits of its former inhabitants. The champion's expedition into Elsewhere would have involved navigating treacherous desert landscapes, perhaps encountering nomadic Khajiit tribes, and delving into the forgotten history of a civilization long past its prime. The challenges here would have been different still, requiring resilience against the harsh environment and perhaps cunning to outwit whatever guardians or traps protected the staff piece within the ancient city. Each retrieved piece brought the champion closer to their ultimate goal, but also highlighted the immense power Tharn had scattered across the continent. The journey continued into the treacherous swamps and dense jungles of Black Marsh, the enigmatic home of the Argonians. This inhospitable province, rife with disease, dangerous creatures, and hidden ruins, concealed a staff piece within the decaying remnants of Mirkwood. Mirkwood, a name that evokes images of ancient, waterlogged structures and forgotten secrets, would have presented the champion with a unique set of challenges. Navigating the treacherous bogs, contending with the indigenous flora and fauna, and perhaps even facing the distrustful Argonians would have tested the champion's endurance and adaptability. The atmosphere of Black Marsh, dark and foreboding, would have been a stark contrast to the previous provinces, adding another layer of complexity to the quest. Retrieving the staff piece from Mirkwood would have required courage and perseverance in the face of overwhelming natural dangers. From the murky depths of Black Marsh, the champion was drawn to the volcanic, ash-choked landscapes of Morrowind, the ancestral home of the Dwemer, or Dark Elves. This alien and often hostile province, dominated by the colossal Red Mountain, held a staff piece within the fiery region of Dagoth-Ur. While the name Dagoth-Ur would later become synonymous with a powerful antagonist in a subsequent Elder Scrolls title, in the context of Arena, it referred to a specific, geographically defined volcanic area. The champion's foray into Morrowind would have been fraught with peril, from navigating the treacherous volcanic terrain to potentially encountering the xenophobic Dwemer and their unique, often dangerous magical practices. The heat, the ash, and the inherent dangers of a volcanic region would have pushed the champion to their limits, demanding both physical and magical resilience. The staff piece, nestled within such an infernal landscape, was undoubtedly well protected, requiring a significant effort to retrieve. Finally, the champion's quest led them to the frozen, snow-capped peaks and vast wildernesses of Skyrim, the rugged homeland of the Nords. This harsh, unforgiving province, known for its ancient ruins and formidable creatures, hid a staff piece within the icy labyrinth of Labyrinthian. Labyrinthian, a name that perfectly describes its complex and treacherous nature, was an ancient Nordic ruin, likely filled with traps, puzzles, and powerful guardians. The champion's journey through Skyrim would have involved braving blizzards, navigating treacherous mountain passes, and perhaps contending with the fierce wildlife and ancient Nordic magic that permeated the land. The cold, the isolation, and the sheer scale of Labyrinthian would have presented a formidable challenge, requiring both strength and intellect to overcome. Each piece, painstakingly recovered from its diverse and dangerous resting place, brought the champion closer to their ultimate confrontation with Jagar Tharn, and closer to restoring balance to the Empire. The collection of these 6 pieces marked a significant milestone in the champion's arduous journey, demonstrating their unwavering commitment to the cause and their growing power. But the quest was far from over. 2 more pieces remained, and with each retrieval, Tharn's awareness of the champion's progress would undoubtedly grow, making the final stages of the quest even more perilous. The fate of the Empire, and indeed the very fabric of Tamriel, rested on the shoulders of this lone, nameless hero, guided by the spectral whispers of a murdered apprentice. Continuing our journey through the Imperial Simulacrum, a period of unprecedented deception and turmoil spanning from 3E 389 to 3E 399, the champion's quest for the Staff of Chaos pressed onward, a desperate race against the continued erosion of Tamriel's stability. Having already navigated a labyrinth of ancient ruins and treacherous dungeons, the champion's path led them next to the rugged, windswept shores of High Rock, the homeland of the Bretons and Orcs. Here, amidst the craggy peaks and mist-shrouded valleys, lay the fortress of Fang Lair, a name whispered with a mixture of fear and reverence among the local populace. Fang Lair was not merely a stronghold, but a legendary site, rumored to have been carved out of the very mountains by ancient civilizations, its depths holding secrets and dangers beyond the comprehension of most mortals. It was within these formidable walls that another crucial piece of the Staff of Chaos was believed to reside, guarded by formidable magical wards and equally formidable creatures. The champion, undeterred by the daunting reputation of the fortress, meticulously planned their infiltration, understanding that a direct assault would be suicidal. Instead, they relied on a combination of stealth, cunning, and their growing mastery of combat and magic, carefully navigating the labyrinthine corridors, bypassing deadly traps, and confronting the fortress's monstrous guardians. Each step deeper into Fang Lair brought the champion closer to their goal, but also into greater peril, as the fortress seemed to actively resist their presence, its ancient defenses awakening to repel the intruder. Finally, after a grueling ordeal, the champion recovered the staff piece, a fragment imbued with a palpable sense of ancient power, further fueling their determination to restore the staff to its former glory. With the High Rock piece secured, the champion's odyssey continued, taking them across the vast and diverse continent of Tamriel to the sun-baked sands of Hammerfell, the arid homeland of the Red Guards. This desert province, known for its fierce warriors and ancient, often unforgiving traditions, presented a stark contrast to the verdant landscapes of High Rock. Here, nestled amidst the shifting dunes and stark rock formations, lay the desert stronghold of Scourgebarrow. Unlike the ancient, almost organic architecture of Fang Lair, Scourgebarrow was a harsh, imposing structure, built for defense and secrecy, its very silhouette a testament to the unforgiving nature of its surroundings. Rumor spoke of Scourgebarrow as a place of dark magic and forgotten rituals, a haven for those who preferred to operate outside the scrutiny of the Empire. The staff piece within Scourgebarrow was said to be guarded by equally formidable forces, perhaps even more insidious than those encountered previously, given the province's reputation for powerful sorcerers and ancient curses. The champion, now a seasoned veteran of countless perilous encounters, approached Scourgebarrow with a renewed sense of purpose. They understood that each recovered piece brought them closer to ending Jagar Tharn's tyrannical reign, but also intensified the danger, as Tharn's agents would undoubtedly be redoubling their efforts to thwart the champion's progress. Navigating the scorching desert, braving sandstorms, and hidden dangers, the champion eventually infiltrated Scourgebarrow, facing off against its guardians, who ranged from skilled warriors to potent mages, each fiercely dedicated to protecting the staff piece. Through sheer perseverance and an unwavering commitment to their mission, the champion ultimately secured the penultimate fragment, the weight of it in their hands a tangible reminder of the immense power they were slowly reassembling. The champion's tireless efforts culminated in the gathering of all 8 pieces of the Staff of Chaos from across the breadth of Tamriel. This monumental achievement, spanning the entirety of the Imperial Simulacrum, saw the champion traverse every one of the 9 provinces, from the frozen wastes of Skyrim to the sweltering swamps of Blackmarsh, from the ancient forests of Valenwood to the vibrant cities of Somerset Isle. Each piece represented a significant challenge, a unique dungeon, and a formidable guardian, testing the champion's skills in combat, magic, stealth, and diplomacy to their absolute limits. The journey was not merely a physical one, but also a journey of self-discovery, as the champion, initially an unknown prisoner, had transformed into a legendary figure, their name whispered in taverns and sung in ballads across the land. They had witnessed the suffering of the people under Tharn's rule, the subtle but insidious corruption that had seeped into every corner of the Empire, and this experience had only strengthened their resolve. The 8 pieces, each humming with latent magical energy, were carefully brought together, their individual powers now converging, hinting at the immense force they would wield once fully united. With all the fragments in their possession, the champion undertook the delicate and dangerous task of reassembling the Staff of Chaos. This was no mere act of physical reconstruction. It required a deep understanding of ancient magic and the intricate energies that bound the staff together. Utilizing the knowledge gleaned from ancient texts and the guidance of those few wise individuals who still remembered the staff's true nature, the champion meticulously worked to restore its full power. As each piece clicked into place, a surge of raw arcane energy coursed through the champion, a testament to the staff's immense potential. The air around them crackled with an almost visible aura of magic, and the staff, once a collection of inert fragments, now pulsed with a vibrant, otherworldly light. Its true form, a magnificent artifact of immense power, was finally revealed, its purpose clear: to restore order to a chaotic world. The reassembled Staff of Chaos was not just a weapon, it was a symbol of hope, a beacon in the encroaching darkness, and the final key to ending Jagar-Tharn's tyrannical reign. Empowered by the fully restored Staff of Chaos, the champion, now truly a force to be reckoned with, made their fateful journey to the Imperial City, the heart of the Empire and the seat of Jagar-Tharn's false power. The Imperial Palace, a sprawling complex of majestic architecture and ancient magical wards, stood as the final bastion of Tharn's deception. The champion knew that this confrontation would be the most perilous of all, a direct challenge to the very source of the Imperial Simulacrum. Infiltrating the heavily guarded palace required a combination of audacious bravery and masterful stealth. As Tharn's personal guard, composed of his most loyal and magically enhanced servants, patrolled every corridor and chamber, the champion navigated the opulent halls, each step bringing them closer to the throne room, the very heart of Tharn's dominion. The air within the palace was thick with a palpable sense of tension, a premonition of the epic clash that was about to unfold. Finally, after bypassing numerous magical defenses and confronting elite guards, the champion stood before Jagar-Tharn himself in the grand throne room. Tharn, seated upon the imperial throne, exuded an aura of arrogant power, his eyes gleaming with a malicious intelligence, utterly convinced of his invincibility. The confrontation was immediate and intense. As the champion revealed the reassembled Staff of Chaos, its radiant glow illuminating the throne room, Jagar-Tharn's facade of benevolent ruler crumbled. His eyes, which had previously held a cunning but human quality, now blazed with an unholy light. With a snarl of pure malice, Tharn revealed his true form, shedding the illusion of a benevolent emperor. He was not merely a cunning advisor, but a powerful sorcerer, a master of illusion and destruction. His true nature far more ancient and terrifying than anyone had suspected. His form shifted, becoming more gaunt, his features sharpening into something predatory, his skin taking on an unnatural pallor, and his eyes glowing with an inner fire, a testament to the dark magic that coursed through his veins. This was the true Jagar-Tharn, a vile mage whose ambition had plunged an entire continent into a decade of chaos. The revelation sent a chilling ripple through the air, confirming the champion's deepest fears about the true extent of Tharn's power and the insidious nature of his deception. He was not merely a political manipulator, but a formidable magical adversary, and the champion knew that this would be a battle for the very soul of the Empire. The throne room, once a symbol of imperial majesty, became the arena for an epic magical duel. Jagar-Tharn, now fully unleashed a barrage of devastating spells, bolts of pure arcane energy, fire, and frost erupting from his outstretched hands, tearing through the air towards the champion. He conjured spectral minions, summoned elemental forces, and wove intricate wards, attempting to overwhelm and destroy his adversary. The champion, wielding the Staff of Chaos, met Tharn's onslaught with equal ferocity, deflecting spells, countering magical attacks, and unleashing their own potent enchantments. The Staff of Chaos, now fully restored, proved to be an invaluable asset, its ancient power responding to the champion's will, allowing them to channel raw magical energy, create protective barriers, and even temporarily disrupt Tharn's formidable magical defenses. The clash of magic illuminated the opulent throne room, the air crackling with energy, the very foundations of the Imperial Palace trembling under the force of their duel. Each spell cast, each ward broken, each counterattack was a testament to the champion's unwavering resolve and the immense power of the staff. The battle was a whirlwind of light and shadow, a testament to the pinnacle of magical combat, as two incredibly powerful beings fought for the fate of Tamriel. The duel raged, a cataclysmic display of magical prowess, but ultimately, the champion, empowered by the Staff of Chaos, proved to be the superior force. With a final, decisive surge of power, the champion channeled the staff's immense energy, unleashing a focus blast of raw arcane force directly at Jagar-Tharn. The Staff of Chaos, resonating with ancient power, tore through Tharn's remaining magical defenses, overwhelming his formidable sorcery. The blast struck Tharn, not merely as a physical force, but as a disruptive wave of pure magical energy that unraveled his very being. The malevolent light in his eyes flickered and died, his form contorted in a silent scream of agony as the staff's power consumed him. Jagar-Tharn, the usurper, the orchestrator of the Imperial Simulacrum, was utterly defeated, his dark magic undone by the very artifact he had sought to control. His defeat was absolute, a final, definitive end to his tyrannical reign. Upon Jagar Tharn's defeat, a palpable shift occurred throughout the Imperial Palace, and indeed, across all of Tamriel. The magical hold he had exerted over the Empire, the insidious spell of deception and apathy that had allowed him to rule unchallenged for a decade, shattered like fragile glass. The oppressive weight that had settled upon the land lifted, and a collective sigh of relief, though unheard, resonated through the hearts of millions. The subtle, magical corruption that had seeped into the very fabric of Imperial institutions began to recede, and the minds of those who had been subtly influenced by Tharn's sorcery began to clear. The immediate consequence within the Imperial Palace was the sudden and dramatic vanishing of the doppelganger of Uriel Septim VII. The illusory figure, which had maintained the pretense of the Emperor's presence, flickered and dissolved into nothingness, leaving the throne room empty save for the victorious champion and the lingering echoes of the epic magical duel. Its disappearance was not merely a visual effect, but a symbolic act, signifying the complete breakdown of Tharn's elaborate deception and the end of his false reign. The stage was now set for the true Emperor's return. With Tharn vanquished and his magical hold broken, the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. The champion, having fulfilled their arduous quest, then initiated the process of releasing Uriel Septim VII from his Oblivion prison. The specifics of Uriel's confinement were chilling. Tharn had banished the Emperor to a pocket dimension within Oblivion, a realm of pure void and suffering, ensuring his silence and preventing any interference with his usurpation. The champion, using their knowledge of ancient magic and the now restored Staff of Chaos, was able to breach the barriers between Mundus and Oblivion, locating the specific pocket dimension where Uriel was held captive. The act of retrieving the Emperor was a testament to the champion's mastery of the staff and their understanding of the arcane arts. A shimmering portal opened, and through it, weak but alive, stepped Uriel Septim VII, bewildered and disoriented but unmistakably the true Emperor. His decade-long ordeal in the desolate waste of Oblivion had taken its toll, but his spirit remained unbroken, and his mind, though clouded by the trauma, was intact. Thus, the Imperial Simulacrum, a dark chapter in Tamriel's history, came to a definitive end. Jagar Tharn, the treacherous Imperial battle mage who had plunged the Empire into a decade of chaos and deception, was utterly defeated, his reign of terror brought to a conclusive end by the champion. Uriel Septim VII, the rightful Emperor, was restored to the throne, his return a beacon of hope for a weary populace. The champion, once an unknown prisoner, had risen to become the savior of the Empire, their actions forever etched into the annals of Tamrielic history. The Staff of Chaos, the artifact at the heart of this epic tale, was once again whole, its immense power having been instrumental in restoring order to the land. The Empire, though scarred by the decade of Tharn's rule, could now begin the arduous process of healing and rebuilding, guided by its true Emperor. This pivotal period from 3E 389 to 3E 399 stands as a stark reminder of the fragility of power, the dangers of unchecked ambition, and the enduring strength of heroism in the face of overwhelming darkness. The events of Arena set the stage for the next great conflicts and developments in Tamriel, proving that even in the darkest of times, a single individual can change the course of history. Our journey through the Elder Scrolls timeline now brings us to a pivotal moment, one that reshaped the very political and geographical landscape of Tamriel. We are now in the year 3E405, and the events we are about to explore are famously known as the Warp in the West, though the story begins with a seemingly simple murder mystery. The Emperor, Uriel Septim VII, a figure we've encountered previously in the context of the Imperial Simulacrum, finds himself facing a new and unsettling problem. Whispers of a restless spirit, the ghost of a king, have reached the Imperial City. King Lysandus of Daggerfall, a prominent kingdom within the Iliac Bay region, was officially reported to have died heroically in battle. Yet, reports indicate his spectral form continues to haunt the battlefields and even the streets of his former domain, a clear sign that his spirit has not found peace. This is no mere superstition for the Emperor. Such disturbances can destabilize entire regions, and the Iliac Bay, a strategically vital area, cannot afford such unrest. To investigate this supernatural anomaly and uncover the truth behind Lysandus' death, Uriel Septim VII dispatches a trusted operative known only as the Agent to the Iliac Bay. The Agent, a character whose background and allegiances are deliberately left vague, arrives in the Iliac Bay region, specifically in the bustling city of Daggerfall. The city, a hub of trade and political intrigue, immediately immerses the Agent in the complex web of local politics and ancient grudges. It doesn't take long for the Agent to realize that the official story of King Lysandus' death is a carefully constructed fabrication. The common folk whisper tales of betrayal, and the nobility, while outwardly maintaining decorum, hint at darker truths. The prevailing sentiment is clear. King Lysandus was murdered, not killed in battle, and his spectral presence is a testament to this injustice. His ghost, a visible manifestation of unresolved conflict, serves as a constant reminder of the deception. It's a powerful symbol, disturbing the peace and eroding trust in the ruling elite. As the Agent delves deeper, the gravity of the situation becomes apparent. The spectral King Lysandus is not just a localized haunting. His anguish seems to permeate the very fabric of the region, causing unease and minor magical disturbances. The agent's investigations quickly lead to Queen Aubeki of Daggerfall, Lysandas's widow. Burdened by the weight of her husband's restless spirit and the unspoken accusations that plague her court, Queen Aubeki formally tasks the agent with a crucial mission to uncover Lysandas's true murderer and, in doing so, finally lay his tormented spirit to rest. This assignment elevates the agent's role from a simple investigator to a key player in the unfolding drama of the Iliac Bay, granting access to information and individuals previously beyond reach. Through diligent investigation, gathering clues from various sources, from tavern gossip to cryptic messages from secretive orders, the agent begins to piece together the events surrounding Lysandas's death. The official narrative that he fell honorably during the Battle of Cringane Field is systematically dismantled. The truth, far more insidious, emerges. Lysandas was not slain by an enemy blade in the heat of battle, but by a poisoned arrow. This revelation shifts the focus from a glorious military death to a cold-blooded assassination, transforming the entire conflict from a simple war into a stage for political treachery. The poisoned arrow points to a deliberate act, a calculated strike rather than a casualty of war, deepening the mystery and expanding the list of potential suspects. The agent's investigation soon uncovers a vast and intricate conspiracy, a tangled web of deceit spanning numerous noble houses and political factions within the Iliac Bay. This is not merely a single act of murder, but a symptom of a much larger power struggle. The region, always a hotbed of competing interests, is revealed to be on the brink of open conflict, with various lords and ladies vying for control, influence, and ancient artifacts. Each faction has its own secrets, its own ambitions, and its own reasons to either conceal or reveal the truth about Lysandas. The agent navigates this treacherous landscape, sifting through layers of lies and half-truths, understanding that the murder of Lysandas is merely one piece of a much larger, more dangerous puzzle. The political climate is tense, with alliances shifting like desert sands, and the agent must tread carefully to avoid becoming another casualty in this deadly game. It is during this intricate investigation that the agent encounters a figure of immense power and mystery, the Underking, also known as Zurin Arctis. This ancient and enigmatic being, a lich-like figure of immense magical prowess, is not merely a passive observer in the Iliac Bay's political machinations. The Underking has a singular, overriding objective. He seeks the totem of Tiber Septim. This artifact, as the agent will soon learn, is not just a relic of the past. It is the key to controlling a power that could reshape Tamriel itself. The Underking's presence introduces a truly cosmic dimension to the local political intrigue, hinting at forces far grander and more ancient than mere noble squabbles. His motivations, while seemingly straightforward in his desire for the totem, are shrouded in the mists of history and personal tragedy, making him a formidable and unpredictable ally or foe. The Underking's quest for the totem leads the agent to a terrifying revelation: the existence of the Numidium. This is no ordinary weapon or magical artifact. The Numidium is a colossal Dwemer construct, a towering automaton of immense power, forged by the ancient and enigmatic Dwemer, also known as the Deep Elves, before their mysterious disappearance. The Numidium, powered by the heart of a god, is believed to possess the ability to literally reshape reality, to alter the very fabric of existence. Its potential is both awe-inspiring and horrifying. Control over the Numidium would grant its wielder godlike power, capable of imposing their will upon the entire continent of Tamriel, fundamentally altering its geography, its history, and its future. The stakes of the agent's mission are suddenly raised exponentially, from solving a royal murder to potentially determining the fate of the entire world. As word of the Numidium's reemergence, or at least the possibility of its reemergence, spreads, the agent finds themselves at the center of a maelstrom of competing interests. Multiple powerful factions, each with their own agendas and visions for Tamriel, begin to approach the agent, seeking their assistance in acquiring the Numidium, or, more accurately, the totem that controls it. Among these are the Blades, the Emperor's elite secret service, who naturally wish to secure the Numidium for the Empire, believing it to be the only force capable of maintaining order and stability. The Elder Council, the highest legislative body of the Empire, also seeks to gain control, though their motivations might be more bureaucratic and less direct than the Blades. Beyond these imperial factions, various regional powers within the Iliac Bay, including the powerful kingdoms of Daggerfall, Sentinel, Wayrest, and Orsinium, each see the Numidium as a means to achieve dominance over their rivals. Even more shadowy organizations, whose names are only whispered in hushed tones, begin to make their presence known, all converging on the agent, who now holds the key to controlling the most powerful artifact known to exist. The agent is caught in a dangerous game of political chess, where every move could lead to either world domination or utter annihilation. Amidst this grander struggle, the agent continues to pursue the initial mystery of King Lysandas's murder. The threads of the conspiracy finally unravel, revealing a shocking truth. Lysandas's murderer was Lord Woodbourne, a seemingly loyal noble within the court of Daggerfall. However, Woodbourne was not acting alone. He was merely an instrument in the machinations of a far more sinister and powerful entity, Mannimarco, the King of Worms. Mannimarco, a legendary necromancer of immense power and the progenitor of all necromancy in Tamriel, sought to destabilize the Iliac Bay and sow chaos, believing it would further his own dark ambitions. Lysandas's death was a calculated move in Mannimarco's grand scheme, a means to an end. This revelation connects the local murder to a far-reaching supernatural threat, intertwining political intrigue with ancient, dark magic. Armed with this knowledge, the agent confronts Lord Woodbourne. The confrontation is tense, culminating in the agent obtaining irrefutable evidence of Woodbourne's guilt, likely in the form of incriminating documents, confessions, or magical artifacts linking him directly to Mannimarco and the poisoned arrow. With this evidence, the truth behind Lysandas's death is finally brought to light, and the first step towards laying his restless spirit to peace is taken. The local mystery is solved, but the larger conflict, the one involving the Numidium, still looms large. The agent's journey also leads to the recovery of the Totem of Tiber's Septim, the powerful artifact designed specifically to control the Numidium. This totem is not merely a switch or remote control. It is a complex device, imbued with ancient magic and technology, capable of interfacing with the Dwemer construct's intricate systems. Its recovery is a monumental achievement, as it represents the only known means to safely command the Numidium's immense power. Without it, the Numidium is a rampaging force of destruction, but with it, it becomes a weapon of unimaginable potential. The agent learns that the totem's history is as complex and ancient as the Numidium itself. It was initially hidden by the Dwemer, who understood the immense power they had created and the dangers it posed. They likely concealed it to prevent its misuse. Later, after the Dwemer's disappearance, the totem was rediscovered and subsequently hidden by Tiber Septim himself, the legendary founder of the Septim dynasty and the first emperor of Tamriel. Tiber Septim, having used the Numidium to conquer Tamriel and establish his empire, understood its destructive capabilities firsthand. He likely hid the totem to prevent future conflicts and ensure that such a powerful weapon remained dormant, unless absolutely necessary. This adds another layer of historical significance to the totem, connecting it directly to the foundations of the current imperial regime and highlighting the immense responsibility that comes with its possession. The agent now holds the key to a power that shaped history and could very well reshape it again. The agent, now possessing this immense power, was faced with an unenviable choice. Who would ultimately wield the Totem of Tiber Septim, and by extension, the Numidium? This decision was not merely about handing over a powerful artifact. It was about shaping the destiny of an entire region, and perhaps the very fabric of reality itself. Several powerful factions and individuals vied for control, each with their own compelling and often conflicting motivations. There was the empire itself, represented by Emperor Uriel Septim VII. His initial directive was to secure the totem, but his true ambition was to recover the Numidium and restore the empire's former glory, perhaps even expanding its dominion across Tamriel. The emperor believed that only through the unified strength of the empire, backed by the colossal power of the brass god, could true peace and order be maintained. He saw the Numidium not as a weapon of destruction, but as a tool of ultimate enforcement, capable of quashing any dissent and solidifying imperial rule. His agents, including the enigmatic Lady Brysiana, subtly guided the agent towards this outcome, emphasizing the stability and prosperity that a strong unified empire could bring to the Iliac Bay. They argued that any other outcome would lead to chaos and endless conflict among the squabbling kingdoms. Then there was the Underking, a mysterious spectral figure whose very existence was intertwined with the Numidium. He was, in essence, the soul of Zurin Arctis, the imperial battle mage who had sacrificed himself to power the original Numidium and then became its ghostly guardian. His primary goal was not to wield the Numidium, but to destroy it, to finally end its destructive potential and, in doing so, find his own eternal rest. He viewed the brass god as a catastrophic force, a blight upon Tamriel that had caused untold suffering in the past. The Underking believed that the only true path to peace was to eradicate the Numidium entirely, preventing it from ever falling into the wrong hands again. He offered the agent a path of ultimate sacrifice, a chance to rid the world of a truly dangerous artifact, even if it meant his own final demise in the process. His arguments were steeped in the wisdom of ages and a profound weariness from centuries of restless existence. Mannimarco, the King of Worms, was another formidable contender. He was the most powerful necromancer in Tamriel, a master of death and undeath, and his ambitions were truly cosmic. Mannimarco sought to harness the Numidium's immense power not for political gain or destruction, but for his own apotheosis. He desired to transcend his mortal form and ascend to godhood, becoming a divine entity of undeath, known as the Necromancer's Moon. He saw the Numidium as the ultimate conduit, a machine capable of rewriting reality itself, and thus capable of elevating him to a plane of existence beyond mortal comprehension. Mannimarco's manipulations were subtle and insidious, often involving promises of immense power or knowledge in exchange for the totem. He was a master manipulator, and his allure was particularly strong for those who craved forbidden knowledge or ultimate power. His vision was not of peace or order, but of a new cosmic hierarchy with him at its apex. Finally, there were the myriad regional kingdoms of the Iliac Bay. Each of these kingdoms, from the proud Breton strongholds to the fierce Orcish tribes, had their own aspirations for the Numidium. Some sought to use it to assert dominance over their rivals, expanding their borders and consolidating their power. Others simply wanted to protect their lands from external threats, seeing the Numidium as the ultimate deterrent. The king of Sentinel, for instance, might have envisioned a powerful, independent kingdom free from imperial oversight, while the king of Daggerfall might have sought to become the undisputed hegemon of the region. These rulers, though less overtly powerful than the Empire or Mannimarco, represented the deeply ingrained political landscape of the Iliac Bay, a tapestry of ancient rivalries and alliances. They offered the agent promises of loyalty, riches, and a place of honor within their respective courts, appealing to more earthly desires. The agent's ultimate decision was a moment of profound consequence. After navigating a labyrinth of political intrigue, treacherous dungeons, and perilous quests, the agent delivered the totem of Tiber Septim to one of these competing factions or individuals. This act, seemingly simple, unleashed a chain of events that would forever alter the course of history. Upon the delivery of the totem, the Numidium was activated. This was not a subtle event. A massive surge of raw, untamed magical energy erupted across the entire Iliac Bay. Imagine a storm of pure power, a cataclysmic wave that washed over every city, every mountain, every stretch of coastline. The very air crackled with untold magicka and the ground trembled underfoot. This activation was the catalyst for one of the most enigmatic and profound events in Tamrielic history, the warp in the west, also known as the Dragon Break. From the perspective of those outside the Iliac Bay, this temporal anomaly lasted for 2 days. For those within the region, however, time itself seemed to unravel. Events occurred simultaneously, contradictions became commonplace, and the very concept of linear progression ceased to hold meaning. It was as if the threads of fate had become hopelessly tangled, or perhaps were being rewoven by an unseen hand. The Dragon Break is a phenomenon where Akatosh, the dragon god of time, loses control, and time becomes non-linear, allowing multiple contradictory realities to occur at once. The Numidium, a construct designed to defy the very laws of Mundus, was the perfect instrument to trigger such a cosmic disruption. Its activation created a localized but incredibly intense dragon break that encompassed the entire Iliac Bay. During this 2-day warp in the west, the Numidium's immense power, now unleashed, began to reshape the political landscape and even the geography of the Iliac Bay. The sheer force of its activation, combined with the temporal distortion, allowed for multiple, seemingly impossible outcomes to occur simultaneously. Imagine a world where mountains could shift, rivers could change course, and entire cities could appear or disappear in the blink of an eye, all driven by the raw, reality-bending power of the brass god. This period of chaos was not merely destructive, it was transformative. The agent's actions and the choice of who received the totem directly led to one of several possible outcomes for the region. The beauty and complexity of this event lie in its inherent ambiguity. Because of the Dragon Break, all possible outcomes, in a sense, happened. However, when time eventually reasserted itself, a single coherent reality emerged, a new history forged from the crucible of the warp. If the agent gave the totem to the Empire, the Numidium would have been used to swiftly crush all opposition, consolidating the numerous small kingdoms into a unified imperial province. Borders would have been redrawn, and any resistance would have been met with overwhelming force. The Empire would have achieved its goal of a strong, centralized Iliac Bay, albeit through a period of intense reality-bending conflict. This outcome would have been characterized by rapid expansion and the swift imposition of imperial law. If the totem was given to one of the regional kingdoms, say Daggerfall or Sentinel, that kingdom would have used the Numidium to assert its dominance over its neighbors. The Iliac Bay would not have been unified under the Empire, but rather under a powerful, independent regional power. This would have led to the consolidation of smaller kingdoms under the banner of the chosen regional power, creating a new, dominant force in the region, free from direct imperial control. The outcome would have been a new local hegemony, with the chosen kingdom becoming the undisputed power. If the agent delivered the totem to the Underking, the Numidium would have been destroyed. This act would have been a moment of ultimate sacrifice, as the Underking, intrinsically linked to the brass god, would have been destroyed along with it. His long vigil would have ended, and the threat of the Numidium would have been permanently removed from Tamriel. This outcome would have seen the Iliac Bay emerge from the warp without the immediate presence of the Numidium, but also without the powerful unifying force, or destructive force, it represented. The region would have remained fragmented, but free from the threat of the brass god. And if Mannimarco, the king of worms, received the totem, he would have successfully used the Numidium's power to ascend to godhood, becoming the necromancer's moon. This would have been a terrifying outcome for Tamriel, as a new malevolent divine entity of undeath would have been born. The Iliac Bay would have been ravaged by necromantic energies, and the very fabric of life and death would have been perverted. However, the Dragon Break would have ensured that even this catastrophic outcome was contained, emerging as a singular, albeit horrifying, reality. Regardless of the specific recipient, one overarching consequence of the warp in the West was the consolidation of power. The numerous small kingdoms that had long characterized the Iliac Bay were drastically reduced. The chaotic reality-bending events of the Dragon Break effectively forced a geopolitical restructuring. When time settled, the fragmented landscape of dozens of squabbling states was replaced by fewer, larger, and more powerful entities. This meant that the constant border disputes, minor skirmishes, and complex alliances that had defined the region for centuries were largely swept away, replaced by a more stable, albeit altered, political map. This consolidation was a direct result of the Numidium's influence, forcing a new order upon the region. Beyond the grand geopolitical shifts, the warp in the West also brought resolution to a more personal, yet equally significant, injustice. The ghost of King Lysandus of Daggerfall, whose restless spirit had haunted the region, was finally laid to rest. The agent's investigations undertaken before the totem's delivery had uncovered the truth behind his assassination. It was revealed that Lysandus was murdered by Lord Woodbourne, the former High Chancellor of Daggerfall, who sought to seize power for himself. With the truth exposed and justice served, Lysandus's tormented spirit found peace, and his spectral presence, which had been a source of unease and mystery throughout the Iliac Bay, finally vanished. This resolution, a direct consequence of the agent's detective work, brought a measure of closure to the people of Daggerfall, even amidst the larger chaos. Another key figure whose fate was sealed by the warp in the West was the Underking. His ultimate goal, as we discussed, was either to destroy the Numidium or to be destroyed himself in the process, thus ending his eternal torment. Depending on the agent's choice, one of these fates befell him. If the Numidium was destroyed, so too was the Underking, achieving his long-sought peace. If, however, the Numidium was activated and used by another faction, the Underking, in his desperate attempts to stop it, or perhaps through some unforeseen consequence of the Dragon Break, was also finally destroyed. In either case, the ancient spectral guardian of the brass god finally found his end. His centuries-long vigil concluded. Similarly, Mannimarco, the king of worms, faced his ultimate destiny during this period. If the agent delivered the totem to him, he successfully ascended to godhood, becoming the necromancer's moon, a chilling new celestial body in the night sky. This would have been a victory for the forces of undeath, a permanent scar upon the cosmos. However, if the totem was delivered to another faction, Mannimarco's plans were thwarted. The power of the Numidium, when wielded by another, proved too great for even the King of Worms to overcome, and he was ultimately defeated or destroyed in the chaotic energies of the warp. The outcome of Mannimarco's fate was a stark demonstration of the immense power at play and the profound consequences of the agent's choices. The warp in the West is perhaps the most unique and ambitious narrative device in Elder Scrolls lore. It allowed for multiple, seemingly contradictory player choices to all be considered canonical. The precise details of what happened during those 2 days remain shrouded in mystery, a testament to the raw, reality-bending power of the Numidium and the temporal chaos it unleashed. What is certain, however, is that the Iliac Bay emerged from this cataclysm forever changed, its political landscape redrawn, its ancient injustices resolved, and the fates of its most powerful figures irrevocably sealed. The agent, a seemingly insignificant individual, had, through a series of choices, reshaped an entire region and left an indelible mark on the history of Tamriel. This period stands as a stark reminder of the immense power of choice and the unpredictable nature of reality itself. When ancient powers are unleashed, as the Third Era neared its end, the political machinations and divine interventions that defined the warp in the West faded into memory, replaced by a new, insidious threat brewing in the heart of Morrowind. The year is 3E 427, and the stage is set for events that would shake the very foundations of the Dwemer homeland and reverberate across Tamriel. Our story begins not with a hero, but with a prisoner, a nameless individual of unknown origin, arriving by ship at the sleepy port town of Seda Neen on the island of Vardenfell. This prisoner, you, were not just any convict. Your release had been personally ordered by Emperor Uriel Septim VII himself, a decision shrouded in imperial intrigue and prophetic whispers. Upon disembarking, your official papers were processed by Secucius Ergala, an imperial census and excise agent, who, with a mixture of bureaucratic nonchalance and thinly veiled curiosity, handed you a package and instructions to report to Caius Kozades in Balmora. Kozades, it turned out, was no ordinary citizen. He was the Grand Spy Master of the Blades in Morrowind, the Emperor's most trusted intelligence network. His residence, a seemingly unassuming dwelling in the heart of Balmora, served as the nerve center for imperial operations on Vardenfell. Kozades, a grizzled veteran with a keen eye and an air of weary wisdom, quickly inducted you into the Blades. Your mission, initially vague, soon crystallized into something far more dangerous and vital than mere espionage. He spoke of a growing menace, a creeping plague known as the Blight, which was slowly but inexorably spreading across Vardenfell. This supernatural affliction manifested as a crimson, swirling mist, infecting creatures and people alike, driving them to madness and aggression. Blighted creatures, their bodies twisted and minds corrupted, roamed the wilderness, posing an increasing threat to travelers and settlements. More ominously, Kozades revealed the existence of the Sixth House Cult, a secretive and malevolent organization believed to be behind the Blight's proliferation. Their agents, known as Ash Ghouls and Ascended Sleepers, were not merely cultists, but horrifying manifestations of the Blight itself. their bodies grotesquely transformed. These creatures, along with the increasingly frequent blight storms, were emanating from the desolate, ash-choked region around Red Mountain, the colossal volcano that dominated the center of Vardenfell. The name Dagoth-Ur began to surface in whispers and official reports. He was not a new threat, but an ancient one, a figure from the First Era, a Chimer, the ancient ancestors of the Dwemer before their transformation, who was thought long dead. Legend held that Dagoth-Ur, originally known as Vorin Dagoth, was a close friend and advisor to Indoril Nerevar, the revered hero and hortator of the Chimer. During the War of the Red Mountain, a cataclysmic conflict between the Chimer and the Dwemer, a technologically advanced, reclusive race of elves, Dagoth-Ur was entrusted with guarding the tools of Khagranach, powerful artifacts used by the Dwemer to harness the heart of Lorkhan, a divine artifact of immense power. However, after the war, Dagoth-Ur was believed to have succumbed to the power of the heart, becoming a monstrous entity and disappearing from history. Now, it seemed he had returned, resurrected, and more powerful than ever, plotting to unleash a terrifying construct known as Aquila Khan, a second Numidium, upon Tamriel. The original Numidium, a colossal Dwemer automaton, had been a weapon of immense destructive potential, and the prospect of another threatened to plunge the entire continent into chaos. Your early assignments for the Blades involved gathering intelligence on the Sixth House and the Blight. This led you on a journey across Vardenfell, from the mushroom-filled canyons of the Ascadian Isles to the desolate Ashlands. You spoke with local traders, Imperial legionnaires, and even the indigenous Ashlanders, a nomadic people who lived in harmony with the harsh environment. Through these interactions, you began to piece together the puzzle of the Blight and its origins. It became clear that Dagoth-Ur was not merely a cult leader, but a being of immense, almost divine power, capable of influencing minds and corrupting the very land. A crucial aspect of your investigation involved delving into the enigmatic disappearance of the Dwemer. This highly advanced elven race vanished without a trace at the climax of the War of the Red Mountain, leaving behind only their intricate ruins and the powerful artifacts they had created. The tools of Khagranach, specifically Keening, Sunder, and Wraithguard, were central to their interaction with the heart of Lorkhan. Dagoth-Ur's return and his apparent control over the Blight were intrinsically linked to these ancient events, suggesting that the Dwemer's disappearance and the fate of their artifacts held the key to understanding and defeating him. You explored their ancient strongholds, like Arkanthand and Kogurun, battling their automatons and unearthing fragments of their forgotten history. As your understanding of the situation deepened, Caius Cosades directed you towards the Ashlanders. These nomadic tribes, often viewed with suspicion by the settled Dwemer, possessed a deep ancestral knowledge of Vardenfell and its spiritual landscape. They maintained ancient traditions and prophecies, untainted by the imperial presence or the rigid dogma of the tribunal temple, the dominant religion of the Dwemer. You sought out the wise women and farseers of various tribes, the Ahamusa, the Arabanimson, the Urshilaku, and the Zainab. Each tribe had its own unique customs and trials, and gaining their trust was a delicate dance of diplomacy, respect, and sometimes direct intervention in their internal affairs. The Ashlanders, particularly the Urshilaku, held a prophecy of the Nerevarine, a reincarnation of the legendary Indoril Nerevar, who was destined to unite the Dwemer and defeat a great evil. Your actions, your growing power, and the strange circumstances of your arrival in Morrowind all pointed to you being this prophesied hero. To truly become the Nerevarine incarnate in the eyes of the Ashlanders, you had to undergo a series of arduous trials. These trials tested not only your physical prowess, but also your wisdom, your understanding of Ashlander customs, and your commitment to their people. You retrieved ancient relics, settled tribal disputes, and even faced down powerful beasts of the Ashlands. Each successful trial brought you closer to fulfilling the prophecy and earning the trust and respect of the Ashlander farseers, who, after much deliberation, recognized you as the true Nerevarine. Meanwhile, the divine power of the tribunal, the living gods of the Dwemer, Almalexia, Sotha Sil, and Vivek, was visibly waning. These three figures, revered as saviors and protectors, had ruled Morrowind for millennia, their divinity sustained by their direct connection to the heart of Lorkhan, a connection they had forged after the War of the Red Mountain. However, the Blight spread and Dagoth-Ur's resurgence were directly impacting their power. Vivek, the most accessible of the three, resided in his magnificent city temple, a floating fortress of intricate architecture. He was a being of immense wisdom and cryptic pronouncements, and his words hinted at a profound shift in the cosmic balance. As you delved deeper into the mysteries of the Tribunal and Dagoth-Ur, a shocking truth began to emerge. The Tribunal's divinity was not inherent, but rather a carefully maintained secret, fueled by the heart of Lorkhan. After the War of the Red Mountain, Nerevar, having defeated Dagoth-Ur and the Dwemer, had entrusted the tools of Khagranach to the Tribunal, with the understanding that they would guard the heart and never use its power for themselves. However, driven by ambition or perhaps fear, the Tribunal had betrayed Nerevar, using the tools to tap into the heart's power and ascend to godhood. Dagoth-Ur, who had been guarding the tools, was believed to have been slain by Nerevar at the Heart Chamber, but later, it was revealed that he had merely been severely wounded and driven away, ultimately returning to the heart to draw upon its power himself. The tribunal had then made a pact with Dagoth-Ur, a desperate attempt to contain his growing influence by allowing him a portion of the heart's power in exchange for his cooperation. This pact, however, had been broken, and Dagoth-Ur's insatiable hunger for power had led him to claim the heart entirely for himself, severing the tribunal's connection and causing their divine power to diminish. This revelation shattered the carefully constructed narrative of the tribunal's benevolent godhood, exposing them as flawed, ambitious beings who had committed a grave betrayal. To confront Dagoth-Ur, you needed the very instruments that had created both his power and the tribunal's, the tools of Kagrenak. Specifically, Sunder and Wraithguard, two of the three artifacts used to interact with the heart of Lorkhan, had been lost for centuries. Keening, the third tool, was in Dagoth-Ur's possession. Your quest led you to ancient forgotten Dwemer ruins and dangerous Daedric shrines, following cryptic clues and battling formidable guardians. The retrieval of Sunder and Wraithguard was a perilous undertaking, requiring not only combat prowess but also a deep understanding of Dwemer lore and the dangers associated with handling such powerful, soul-bound artifacts. With the tools in hand, your path led directly to Red Mountain, the epicenter of the Blight and Dagoth-Ur's domain. But before you could face the arch-villain himself, you had to contend with his most powerful lieutenants, the Ash Vampires. These fearsome beings were not mere cultists, but ancient Chimer, once loyal followers of Dagoth-Ur who had been transformed by the heart's power into grotesque, immortal creatures. Each Ash Vampire held a unique position within Dagoth-Ur's hierarchy, guarding strategic locations within the volcanic fortress and wielding formidable powers. You faced Dagoth-Aranes, the master of the Citadel of Vemenal, and Dagoth-Thras, the guardian of the Citadel of Kogarun, among others. Each confrontation was a brutal test of your strength, skill, and resolve, pushing you to your limits as you battled through their blighted strongholds and vast armies of corrupted creatures. These victories were not just about clearing a path to Dagoth-Ur, but also about slowly dismantling his power base and proving your worth as the Nerevarine, the one destined to end the blight and restore balance to Morrowind. The Nerevarine, now a seasoned warrior and master of various disciplines, stood before the Ghost Gate, a colossal magical barrier designed to contain the blight. This ancient Dwemer construct, a testament to their lost technological prowess, hummed with a contained power, its gates guarded by the vigilant ordinators of the Tribunal Temple. Beyond lay the ash-choked wastes of the Red Mountain region, the very heart of the blight and the seat of Dagoth-Ur's growing power. The air grew heavy with a palpable malevolence, the sky a perpetual twilight under the pall of volcanic ash and disease. The Nerevarine, fortified by the blessings of the Tribunal and the knowledge gleaned from ancient texts and living sages, prepared for the final confrontation. This was not merely a journey into a hostile land, but a descent into the very core of a corrupted divinity. The path through the Red Mountain region was fraught with peril. The Nerevarine battled through the strongholds of the Sixth House, each a grotesque monument to Dagoth-Ur's twisted vision. These were not mere fortifications, but living, breathing extensions of the Blight, populated by ash creatures, the corrupted forms of Dwemer and other races, their minds warped by Dagoth-Ur's influence. Ash ghouls, ash slaves, and the fearsome ascended sleepers, once mortals, now powerful agents of the Sixth House, assailed the Nerevarine at every turn. Each stronghold, such as Kogarun, Endusal, and Odrasal, presented unique challenges, guarded by powerful ash vampires, the direct lieutenants of Dagoth-Ur, who had themselves been transformed by the heart of Lorkhan's power. These encounters were not simple skirmishes, they were tests of will and strength, each victory a symbolic chipping away at the Blight's seemingly insurmountable dominance. The Nerevarine uncovered horrifying rituals within these strongholds, evidence of Dagoth-Ur's insidious plan to spread his divine disease across all of Morrowind, transforming everyone into his devoted, albeit monstrous, followers. The very landscape seemed to conspire against the Nerevarine, with ash storms blinding and disorienting, and the constant threat of blight diseases weakening even the strongest constitution. Yet, with each obstacle overcome, the Neravarine's resolve hardened, driven by the prophecy and the growing understanding of the immense threat Dagoth-Ur posed. Finally, after a grueling journey through the treacherous terrain and the relentless onslaught of the Sixth House, the Nerevarine confronted Dagoth-Ur in the heart chamber beneath Red Mountain. This was the pinnacle of Dagoth-Ur's domain, a cavernous space pulsating with the raw, untamed energy of the heart of Lorkhan itself. Dagoth-Ur, cloaked in his distinctive robes and radiating an aura of immense power, stood before the Nerevarine, his voice echoing with a chilling conviction, attempting to sway the Nerevarine to his cause, to join him in his grand, if twisted, vision for Morrowind. He spoke of the Tribunal's betrayal, of his own suffering, and of his desire to liberate the Dwemer from the tyranny of their false gods. He revealed his true form, a towering, grotesque figure, a testament to the heart's corrupting influence. The ensuing battle was not just a clash of physical might, but a struggle of ideologies, a contest between ancient prophecy and a desperate, corrupted ambition. Dagoth-Ur, empowered by the heart, proved to be an incredibly formidable opponent, capable of regenerating and unleashing devastating attacks, forcing the Nerevarine to employ every skill and artifact at their disposal. The Nerevarine, recalling the lessons learned and the artifacts gathered, used Kagranak's tools to sever Dagoth-Ur's connection to the heart of Lorkhan. These were the very tools, Sunder and Wraithguard, that the Dwemer architect Kagranak had used to tap into the heart's power, and Keening, a dagger designed to resonate with its divine energy. With Sunder, the Nerevarine struck the heart, disrupting its connection to Dagoth-Ur. This act, however, was not enough. Dagoth-Ur, intrinsically linked to the heart for centuries, could not be so easily undone. It was then that the Nerevarine, guided by the ancient texts and the lingering whispers of Azura's prophecy, used Wraithguard to safely wield Keening. With Keening, the Nerevarine delivered the final, decisive blow, severing the last vestiges of Dagoth-Ur's connection to the divine spark. This was a moment of immense cosmic significance, a reversal of the catastrophic events that began with the Battle of Red Mountain millennia ago. The power that had sustained Dagoth-Ur, that had fueled the Blight and corrupted his very being, began to unravel, causing him to scream in agony as his connection to immortality and divine power was violently severed. With Dagoth-Ur's connection to the heart severed, the Nerevarine fulfilled ancient prophecies and defeated the self-proclaimed god. Dagoth-Ur, stripped of his power and his immortality, was finally vanquished, his physical form dissolving into ash, his essence dispersed. The heart of Lorkhan, no longer bound by the manipulations of Dagoth-Ur or the Tribunal, was then destroyed. This was not a simple act of destruction, but a complex magical operation. The Nerevarine, using the same tools that had bound the heart, effectively unmade its connection to Mundus, causing it to dissipate into the ether. This cataclysmic event had profound repercussions. The destruction of the heart of Lorkhan immediately ended the Blight, the insidious disease that had plagued Morrowind for centuries. The oppressive ash storms began to recede, the sky slowly clearing, and the grotesque Blight creatures withered and died, their unnatural existence unsustainable without the heart's corrupting influence. The threat of the Sixth House, Dagoth-Ur's fanatical cult, crumbled overnight, their leader gone, their power source extinguished. The people of Morrowind, who had lived under the shadow of the Blight for so long, began to breathe a collective sigh of relief, though the scars of its long reign would remain. The destruction of the heart of Lorkhan also had a devastating, albeit expected consequence for the Tribunal. Their divine power, which had been drawn directly from the heart for millennia, completely waned, and they became mortal. Sotha Sil, the reclusive clockwork god, was the first to feel the full effects, his connection to the heart being the most direct and profound. Vivek, ever the pragmatist, acknowledged the inevitable, his own power fading, though his immense spiritual fortitude allowed him to retain a semblance of his former glory for a time. Almalexia, however, reacted with a desperate fury, clinging to her fading divinity with a terrifying intensity. This loss of divine power was a monumental shift in the religious landscape of Morrowind, marking the end of an era that had defined Dunmer society for thousands of years. The living gods, revered and worshipped, were now vulnerable, their immortality stripped away, their future uncertain. In the aftermath of Dagoth-Ur's defeat, Vivek acknowledged the Nerevarine as the true reincarnation of Indoral Nerevar. This declaration, coming from the most enigmatic and powerful of the Tribunal, was a moment of immense validation. Vivek, residing in his magnificent palace city of Vivek, revealed the truth of Nerevar's death, confirming the Tribunal's betrayal and their subsequent oath-breaking. He spoke of his own remorse and the burden of his actions, offering a profound apology for the suffering he and his fellow Tribunal members had inflicted. This public recognition, while long awaited, was also a poignant admission of the Tribunal's fallibility and the ultimate failure of their grand experiment with divine power. It solidified the Neravarine's place in history, not merely as a hero, but as the rightful heir to Nerevar's legacy, the one destined to right the wrongs of the past. The Nerevarine was recognized as the savior of Morrowind by many factions, though not without some initial skepticism and resistance. The great houses, initially wary of an outsider, gradually accepted the Neravarine's pivotal role in ending the Blight. House Redoran, with its strong martial traditions and reverence for ancient customs, was among the first to embrace the Nerevarine as a true hero. House Hlalu, ever pragmatic, saw the Nerevarine as a force for stability and economic recovery. Even House Telvanni, with its eccentric mages, acknowledged the Neravarine's immense power and influence. The Ashlanders, who had always maintained the ancient prophecies, celebrated the Nerevarine as the fulfillment of their sacred beliefs, welcoming them into their tribes as the true Hortader and Nerevarine. The Imperial Legion, while initially viewing the Nerevarine with suspicion due to their independent nature, recognized the immense service rendered to the Empire by quelling the threat of the Sixth House. The Tribunal Temple, facing an existential crisis with the fading of their gods, struggled with the implications, but many within its ranks, particularly the younger generations, began to shift their allegiance and respect towards the Nerevarine, seeing them as a beacon of hope for a new era. The Nerevarine, through their actions, had united disparate factions and brought a fragile peace to a land long plagued by conflict and disease. However, the Neravarine's journey was far from over. Rumors and whispers began to reach Vardenfell, speaking of unrest in Mournhold, the ancient capital of Morrowind located on the mainland. King Helseth, the ambitious and often ruthless ruler of Mournhold, was reportedly facing a crisis. His mother, Berenzia, a legendary figure in Imperial and Dunmer history, had seemingly disappeared, causing a power vacuum and increasing tensions within the royal palace. Driven by a sense of duty to Morrowind and a desire to understand the full implications of the tribunal's waning power, the Nerevarine traveled to Mournhold to investigate. The city, a stark contrast to the wild beauty of Vardenfell, was a sprawling metropolis of ancient architecture and political intrigue, a place where the fading glory of the tribunal was still fiercely defended by its most devoted followers. Upon arriving in Mournhold, the Nerevarine quickly became embroiled in the city's complex politics. The disappearance of Berenzia was not a simple matter, and the Nerevarine soon uncovered a dark truth: Almalexia's madness and her murder of Sotha Sil. Almalexia, unable to cope with the loss of her divine power and the unraveling of her carefully constructed reality, had succumbed to paranoia and megalomania. She saw the Nerevarine as a threat to her remaining authority and a symbol of her diminishing status. In a desperate attempt to regain her former glory and reassert her divinity, she had orchestrated a series of events, including the deployment of fabricated fabricants, clockwork constructs to attack Mournhold, blaming them on Sotha Sil. She had then traveled to Sotha Sil's Clockwork City, a hidden dimension of intricate gears and automatons, and murdered him in cold blood, believing that by eliminating him, she could absorb his remaining divine essence and reclaim her full power. Her actions were a tragic culmination of centuries of self-deception and the ultimate price of false godhood. The Nerevarine, witnessing Almalexia's descent into madness and her heinous crimes, was left with no choice. The confrontation with Almalexia took place within the Clockwork City, a surreal and dangerous environment, a testament to Sotha Sil's genius and his ultimate vulnerability. Almalexia, now completely unhinged, attacked the Nerevarine with all her remaining power, her divine artifacts, Hope's Fire and True Flame, blazing with a desperate fury. The battle was a tragic end to a once revered god, a testament to the corrupting influence of power and the devastating consequences of clinging to a stolen divinity. The Nerevarine, with immense difficulty, defeated Almalexia, ending the reign of the living gods once and for all. Her death marked the definitive end of the Tribunal's era, ushering in a new age for Morrowind, one where the Dunmer would have to forge their own destiny, free from the direct influence of their once divine protectors. The Nerevarine, having defeated both Dagoth-Ur and Almalexia, had truly become the savior of Morrowind, a figure of immense power and influence, whose actions had irrevocably altered the course of history for the entire province. The stage was now set for a new chapter in Tamriel's long and tumultuous history, one shaped by the consequences of these monumental events. As the dust settled on the Blight and the Nerevarines' triumphs in Morrowind, a shadow began to lengthen over the heart of the Empire itself. The year is 3E433, marking the final cataclysmic year of the Third Era, an era that had seen the rise and reign of the Septim dynasty for over 4 centuries. This period, known infamously as the Oblivion Crisis, would fundamentally reshape Tamriel, ushering in an age of uncertainty and profound change. Our story begins in the Imperial City, the glistening jewel of Cyrodiil and the seat of imperial power. Emperor Uriel Septim VII, a man of immense power and wisdom who had ruled for over 65 years, was ambushed and assassinated within the very confines of his palace. The perpetrators were not common brigands or political rivals, but the fanatical members of the mythic Dawn, a Daedric cult dedicated to Mehrunes Dagon, the Prince of Destruction. Their motives were shrouded in mystery, but their methods were brutally efficient, leaving a trail of slain blades, the Emperor's elite personal guards, in their wake. The attack was swift, precise, and utterly devastating, signaling a new and terrifying threat to the Empire's stability. Amidst this chaos, a seemingly insignificant prisoner, held within the depths of the Imperial City's prison for an unknown crime, found themselves thrust into the epicenter of history. This individual, later to be known as the Champion of Cyrodiil, was an unwitting participant in destiny. It was through a secret escape route known only to the Emperor and a select few that Uriel Septim VII, accompanied by his last remaining blades, found themselves passing directly through the prisoner's cell. In a moment of dire urgency and prophetic vision, the Emperor recognized something extraordinary in the prisoner, a spark of fate perhaps, and chose to include them in his desperate escape attempt. This unexpected encounter would forever alter the course of the Empire. The escape, however, was short-lived. Cornered by the relentless mythic Dawn assassins in the prison's hidden tunnels, Uriel Septim VII, with his dying breath, made a fateful decision. He entrusted the Amulet of Kings, a powerful artifact central to the Dragonfire's ritual that protected Tamriel from invasion from the plains of Oblivion, to the Champion of Cyrodiil. This sacred amulet, traditionally worn by the legitimate heirs of the Septim dynasty, was not merely a symbol of authority, but a critical component in maintaining the magical barrier between Mundus, the mortal plane, and the chaotic realms of Oblivion. With his final words, the Emperor charged the Champion with finding his last remaining illegitimate heir, a secret son whose existence was known to very few. The weight of an entire empire, and indeed the very fabric of reality, now rested on the shoulders of a nameless prisoner. Following the Emperor's tragic demise, the champion of Cyrodiil delivered the Amulet of Kings to Joffrey, the venerable Grand Master of the Blades, at Waynon Priory, a secluded monastery and a hidden stronghold for the Order. Joffrey, reeling from the loss of his emperor and the dire implications of the Mythic Dawn's actions, recognized the immediate and existential threat facing Tamriel. He understood that without a legitimate Septim heir to light the dragon fires, the protective barrier would falter, leaving Mundus vulnerable. Thus, he tasked the champion of Cyrodiil with a monumental quest, to locate Uriel Septim's illegitimate son, the last hope for the Empire and the world. This son, Joffrey revealed, was a priest named Martin, whose existence had been carefully concealed to protect him from political machinations. Even as the search for Martin began, the consequences of the Dragonfire's failure became terrifyingly apparent. Across the length and breadth of Tamriel, ominous swirling portals began to tear open in the sky, manifesting as colossal, fiery gates to oblivion. From these hellish breaches poured forth the grotesque and malevolent legions of Mehrunes Dagon, the horned Dremora, the brutish Scamps, and the fiery Atronachs, all bent on destruction and conquest. These Oblivion Gates, as they came to be known, were not isolated incidents but a coordinated invasion, signaling the Mythic Dawn's ultimate goal, to usher in a new age of chaos under their Daedric master. Panic and fear gripped the populace as entire towns and cities found themselves under siege. One of the first and most devastating casualties of this invasion was the city of Kvatch, a prosperous settlement in western Cyrodiil. An Oblivion Gate manifested directly outside its walls, unleashing a torrent of Daedra that overwhelmed the city's defenses. Kvatch was utterly destroyed, its buildings reduced to smoldering ruins, its inhabitants slaughtered or dragged into the infernal realm. The sheer brutality and speed of Kvatch's fall sent a chilling message across Tamriel. No place was safe, and the Empire's might was proving insufficient against this otherworldly onslaught. The destruction of Kvatch served as a stark reminder of the peril facing all of Nirn. It was amidst these ashes that the champion of Cyrodiil made their stand. Arriving at the devastated remnants of Kvatch, they discovered a desperate handful of Imperial Guardsmen, led by Captain Savlian Mattius, making a last, valiant effort to push back the Daedric forces. Recognizing the strategic importance of closing the Oblivion Gate, the champion bravely ventured into the hellish landscape of the Deadlands, Mehrunes Dagon's Plain of Oblivion, accessible through the gate. This was a realm of fire, molten rock, and grotesque fortresses, a truly alien and hostile environment. Battling through hordes of Daedra and navigating the treacherous terrain, the champion succeeded in destroying the Sigil Stone, the magical anchor that powered the Oblivion Gate. With its destruction, the gate collapsed, and the Daedric invasion of Kvatch ceased. This heroic act, the first successful closure of an Oblivion Gate, earned the champion of Cyrodiil the enduring moniker, Hero of Kvatch. The immediate aftermath of the Kvatch victory brought a crucial discovery. Among the survivors, sheltered within the ruins of the city's chapel, was a priest, unassuming and burdened by the tragedy around him. This was Martin Septim, the Emperor's last legitimate heir, living a quiet life of faith, utterly unaware of his royal lineage or the immense burden that was about to be placed upon him. The champion of Cyrodiil, having fulfilled part of Joffrey's directive, immediately recognized the significance of this discovery. Martin, despite his initial disbelief and reluctance, was now the linchpin of Tamriel's survival. With the threat of the Mythic Dawn's assassins ever present, the champion of Cyrodiil knew Martin's safety was paramount. They escorted the newly discovered heir, now grappling with the revelation of his true identity, to Waynon Priory. This secluded monastery nestled in the tranquil countryside was not just a place of worship, but a highly secure, hidden stronghold of the Blades, a perfect sanctuary for the last Septim. Here, Martin would be safe, and Joffrey could begin to explain the gravity of his birthright and the role he was destined to play in saving Tamriel. The journey was fraught with peril, but the champion's determination ensured Martin's safe arrival. However, the sanctuary of Waynon Priory proved to be short-lived. The Mythic Dawn, relentless in their pursuit of the Septim bloodline and the Amulet of Kings, launched a devastating assault on the Priory. Their objective was clear: eliminate Martin's Septim and seize the Amulet of Kings, which had been delivered there by the champion. The attack was swift and brutal, overwhelming the Blade's defenses. In the ensuing chaos, the Amulet of Kings, the very artifact central to the Dragonfire's ritual, was stolen by the cultists. This was a catastrophic setback, pushing the Empire further to the brink and deepening the despair that gripped the land. The loss of the amulet meant that even if Martin were to light the Dragonfires, he could not do so without the sacred artifact. Undeterred by this grave loss, the champion of Cyrodiil, now more determined than ever, embarked on a perilous mission to recover the amulet. Their investigation led them deep into the shadowy world of the Mythic Dawn. Through careful reconnaissance and infiltration, the champion discovered one of the cult's hidden shrines, a place of dark ritual and fervent worship dedicated to Mehrunes Dagon. Within this unholy sanctuary, the champion managed to retrieve a copy of the Mysterium Xarxes, the sacred book of the Mythic Dawn. This ancient tome, filled with arcane knowledge and prophecies, was the key to understanding the cult's motives and, crucially, their plans. With the Mysterium Xarxes in hand, the champion returned to Waynon Priory. Martin Septim, a scholar and priest by nature, possessed the intellect and knowledge necessary to decipher the cryptic writings within the forbidden text. Working tirelessly, Martin painstakingly translated parts of the Mysterium Xarxes, slowly unraveling the Mythic Dawn's dark agenda. What he uncovered was chilling. The cult, under the guidance of their charismatic leader, Mankar Camoran, was attempting to break down the barriers between Mundus and Oblivion entirely, ushering in Mehrunes Dagon's direct rule over Tamriel. The Amulet of Kings was not merely a trophy, but a vital component in their ritual to achieve this cataclysmic goal. Armed with this newfound knowledge, the champion of Cyrodiil intensified their efforts to disrupt the Mythic Dawn's operations. Following leads gleaned from the Mysterium Xarxes and through daring investigations, the champion systematically dismantled various cells and outposts of the cult across Cyrodiil. Each step brought them closer to the heart of the conspiracy, revealing the intricate web of deception and fanaticism that permeated the Mythic Dawn. These efforts culminated in the discovery of the cult's true mastermind, the enigmatic and powerful Mankar Camoran, whose twisted ideology and unwavering devotion to Mehrunes Dagon threatened to plunge Tamriel into an eternal nightmare. The stage was now set for a direct confrontation with the orchestrator of the Oblivion Crisis. The champion of Cyrodiil, having proven their mettle against countless Daedric incursions and navigated the labyrinthine politics of the Empire, now faced their ultimate challenge. Following the guidance of Martin Septim, the last heir to the Dragonborn lineage, the champion understood that the only way to truly halt Mankar Camoran's machinations and prevent Mehrunes Dagon's full invasion was to confront the Mythic Dawn leader in his own domain. This led them to Paradise, a pocket realm of Oblivion meticulously crafted by Mankar Camoran himself. Unlike the chaotic, fire-scarred landscapes of the Deadlands, Paradise was a deceptive idyll, a verdant, seemingly peaceful world that masked a sinister philosophy. It was here that Mankar Camoran, having ascended to a state he believed was beyond mortality, held the Amulet of Kings, the very artifact essential for stopping Dagon. The champion's journey through Paradise was a test of both combat prowess and moral conviction, as they encountered disillusioned followers of the Mythic Dawn, strange creatures, and the unsettling beauty of Camoran's twisted creation. The air in Paradise was thick with the cult leader's self-aggrandizing ideology, etched into the very fabric of the realm, proclaiming his divinity and the righteousness of Dagon's destructive will. Finally, the champion of Cyrodiil stood before Mankar Camoran himself. The confrontation was not just a physical battle, but a clash of ideals. Camoran, cloaked in his distinctive robes and wielding potent magic, reveled in his perceived victory, confident in his divine protection within his self-made paradise. He taunted the champion, expounding on his belief that Dagon's invasion was not destruction, but a necessary cleansing, a rebirth for Tamriel. He saw himself as a prophet, leading the world into a new, purer age. Yet, despite his formidable power and the home field advantage, Mankar Camoran was ultimately mortal, and the champion, driven by the desperate need to save Nirn, fought with the unwavering resolve of a true hero. The battle was fierce, a testament to Camoran's mastery of the dark arts and the champion's extraordinary skill. In the end, the champion of Cyrodiil prevailed, striking down Mankar Camoran and reclaiming the Amulet of Kings. This act was a pivotal moment, not only securing the sacred artifact, but also shattering the illusion of Camoran's invincibility and disrupting the Mythic Dawn's carefully laid plans. With the amulet in hand, the champion swiftly returned to Tamriel, but the reprieve was short-lived. The return of the Amulet of Kings, while a victory, also signaled the final, desperate gambit of Mehrunes Dagon, the Daedric Prince of Destruction, Change, Revolution, Energy, and Ambition. With the barriers between Mundus and Oblivion weakened by the constant opening of Oblivion gates and the dragonfires unlit for so long, Dagon had been steadily accumulating power, his influence seeping into Nirn. The moment the amulet was brought back to Mundus, Dagon seized the opportunity, making his most direct and terrifying move yet. He manifested his avatar, a colossal, terrifying physical form, directly in the heart of the Imperial City. This was no mere Daedric siege. It was the physical embodiment of a Daedric prince, a being of immense power and destructive intent, tearing through the fabric of reality. The sky above the Imperial City turned a sickly, fiery red, and the very ground trembled under the weight of Dagon's presence. His monstrous form, with its multiple arms, fiery breath, and razor-sharp claws, was a vision of pure devastation, a nightmare made real. The Imperial City, the jewel of Tamriel and the seat of the Empire, suddenly found itself under direct siege by Mehrunes Dagon's avatar and his legions of Daedric forces. Tremora, scamps, and other horrific creatures poured forth from freshly opened Oblivion gates within the city itself, overwhelming the Imperial Legion and the city guard. Buildings crumbled under Dagon's fiery assault, and the screams of the innocent echoed through the streets. Panic and despair gripped the populace as they witnessed the seemingly unstoppable destruction wrought by a true Daedric prince. The city, once a symbol of imperial might and stability, was now a war zone, its fate hanging precariously in the balance. The champion of Cyrodiil, along with Martin Septim and the remnants of the Imperial Guard, fought valiantly, but it was clear that no mortal army, no matter how brave, could hope to defeat a Daedric prince in his physical manifestation. This was a battle that transcended conventional warfare, a cosmic struggle for the very soul of Nirn. Recognizing the futility of conventional combat against such an overwhelming force, Martin Septim, the last of the Septim bloodline and the true heir to the throne, understood that a far greater sacrifice was required. With the Amulet of Kings now safely in his possession, and with Mehrunes Dagon physically present on Nirn, the conditions were ripe for a desperate, unprecedented ritual. Martin, guided by ancient prophecies and his own innate understanding of his dragonborn heritage, made the ultimate decision to merge his soul with Akatosh, the dragon god of time and the chief deity of the Nine Divines. This was not a simple prayer or an appeal. It was a profound act of self-annihilation and apotheosis, a complete surrender of his mortal form to become a conduit for divine power. The ritual was performed amidst the chaos of the besieged imperial city, a beacon of hope against the encroaching darkness. The Amulet of Kings, intrinsically linked to the dragonborn emperors and their divine mandate, was the key to unlocking this immense power. As Mehrunes Dagon continued his rampage through the imperial city, Martin Septim completed his ritual. In a moment of breathtaking sacrifice, he ceased to be merely Martin Septim, the scholar and reluctant emperor, and became something far greater. His mortal body, imbued with the divine essence of Akatosh, transformed into a magnificent, fiery avatar of the dragon god of time. This colossal golden dragon, radiating immense power and light, manifested directly in front of Mehrunes Dagon, a stark contrast to the destructive prince's demonic form. Martin Septim had sacrificed his very being, his identity, to become the living embodiment of Akatosh, a divine weapon forged to banish the encroaching darkness. This was the ultimate fulfillment of the dragonborn prophecy, a Septim emperor giving his life not to rule, but to save all of existence. The sight of the divine dragon facing the Daedric prince was a moment of awe and terror, a clash of cosmic forces that shook the very foundations of reality. The avatar of Akatosh, now imbued with Martin Septim's sacrifice and the full power of the dragon god, engaged Mehrunes Dagon's physical form in a titanic struggle above the burning imperial city. This was not a mere battle. It was a cataclysmic confrontation between divine order and chaotic destruction. The golden dragon, radiating pure Aedric energy, fought with a ferocity born of divine wrath and mortal desperation. Mehrunes Dagon, despite his immense power, found himself facing an opponent of equal, if not greater, magnitude. The sky itself seemed to tear as their blows exchanged, sending shockwaves across the battle-scarred landscape. Flames met divine fire, and the roar of the dragon god echoed across Tamriel, a sound that would forever be etched into the collective memory of those who witnessed it. Ultimately, the avatar of Akatosh proved victorious. With a final crushing blow, the divine dragon defeated Mehrunes Dagon's physical manifestation, not destroying the Daedric prince entirely, for Daedra cannot truly be killed, only banished, but sending him reeling back into the depths of oblivion, his invasion thwarted. The victory came at a profound cost. In the very act of channeling such immense divine power and banishing a Daedric prince, the Amulet of Kings, the sacred artifact that had bound the dragonborn emperors to Akatosh and sealed the barrier between Mundus and Oblivion for millennia, was utterly destroyed. It shattered into countless fragments, its purpose fulfilled and its power expended in the ultimate act of preservation. This destruction was not a failure, but a permanent solution. With the amulet gone, the barrier between Mundus and Oblivion was not merely restored. It was sealed with an unprecedented finality. The dragonfires which the amulet had powered would never again need to be lit, for the very mechanism that allowed for the opening of Oblivion gates was now irrevocably broken. This meant that never again could a Daedric prince directly manifest their physical form on Nirn, nor could Oblivion gates be opened with such ease. The threat of Daedric invasion, in the manner of the Oblivion Crisis, was eradicated forever. With the banishment of Mehrunes Dagon and the permanent sealing of the barrier, the Oblivion Crisis officially came to an end. Across Tamriel, as if a collective sigh of relief echoed through the land, all remaining Oblivion gates shimmered and vanished. The fiery landscapes of the Deadlands receded, and the skies returned to their natural hues. The Daedric forces, cut off from their prince and their source of power, either dissipated or were hunted down and destroyed by the surviving defenders. The immediate threat was over, but the scars of the crisis would linger for generations. Cities were ravaged, countless lives were lost, and the very fabric of society had been tested to its breaking point. Yet, Tamriel had endured, saved by the courage of the champion of Cyrodiil and the ultimate sacrifice of Martin Septim. The conclusion of the Oblivion Crisis marked a definitive turning point in Tamrielic history. The Third Era, which had begun with the rise of Tiber Septim, officially ended with the death of Martin Septim and the destruction of the Amulet of Kings. With no direct heir to the Dragonborn bloodline and no amulet to consecrate a new emperor, the Septim dynasty, which had ruled for over 4 centuries, came to an abrupt and permanent end. This left the empire in an unprecedented state of flux, without a clear successor or the traditional means of legitimizing imperial rule. The ensuing period of political instability, power vacuums, and contested claims would become known as the Interregnum. This era, characterized by a lack of a central unifying Dragonborn emperor, would see various factions vie for power, leading to significant shifts in the political landscape of Tamriel. The destruction of the Amulet of Kings also meant that the future emperors, whoever they might be, would rule without the divine mandate of Akatosh that had defined the Septim line. The Fourth Era, a period of profound change and uncertainty, had thus begun, ushered in by the ashes of the Oblivion Crisis and the sacrifice of the last Dragonborn Emperor. The world of Tamriel, forever altered, now faced a new, unpredictable future. The Fourth Era, 201 years after the Oblivion Crisis, marks a pivotal moment in Tamriel's history as a new threat emerges from the very foundations of the world. This is the era of Skyrim, a land of ancient Nords, towering mountains, and a lurking, primordial terror. For centuries, the tales of Alduin, the World Eater, were relegated to myth, a chilling bedtime story whispered by grandmothers. But in 4E 201, those myths became a terrifying reality. Alduin, the firstborn of Akatosh, the dragon god of time, and the harbinger of the apocalypse, returned. His reappearance was not a subtle reintroduction, but a cataclysmic roar, signaling the end times for all of Nirn. This was the moment the ancient prophecy of the Dragonbreak began to unfold, a prophecy foretelling the return of the dragons and the subsequent consumption of the world by Alduin, who, in his true form, devours the very fabric of existence, resetting the Kalpa, or cycle of creation and destruction. Amidst this cosmic dread, a seemingly insignificant event unfolded, one that would irrevocably alter the course of history. A lone prisoner, whose past is shrouded in mystery, found themselves caught in an imperial ambush near Darkwater Crossing. This individual, later revealed to be the last Dragonborn, was just another casualty of the ongoing civil war in Skyrim, a conflict that had been simmering for decades and had recently boiled over into open rebellion. The ambush, intended to capture Ulfric Stormcloak, the Jarl of Windhelm and leader of the Stormcloaks, inadvertently swept up this unassuming figure. The irony, of course, is that this prisoner, bound and gagged, was destined for a fate far grander than any political skirmish. Their journey, which began in chains, was about to intersect with the grand tapestry of prophecy. The journey to Helgen, a small imperial outpost, was fraught with tension. The prisoner, along with other captured Stormcloaks, was taken for execution. Among the condemned were Ralof of Riverwood, a loyal Stormcloak soldier, and Hadvar, an imperial legionnaire who, despite his duties, showed a flicker of humanity. And of course, there was Ulfric Stormcloak himself, the charismatic and controversial figurehead of the rebellion, whose very presence ignited the passions of both his followers and his detractors. The execution block loomed, a stark symbol of imperial justice, or perhaps injustice, depending on one's allegiance. The headsman's axe was raised, poised to sever the threads of life, when the impossible happened. With a thunderous roar that shook the very foundations of the earth, Alduin descended upon Helgen. His arrival was a spectacle of raw, untamed power, a whirlwind of fire and shadow. The execution, and indeed the entire outpost, was thrown into chaos. Buildings crumbled, soldiers scattered, and the air filled with the screams of the dying. This was not merely an attack, it was a demonstration of divine wrath, a terrifying confirmation of the ancient prophecies. In the ensuing pandemonium, the last Dragonborn, still bound, found an unexpected opportunity for escape. With Helgen burning around them, they made a desperate dash for freedom, choosing to flee with either Ralof, who urged them to join the Stormcloak cause, or Hadvar, who offered the protection of the Imperial Legion. This choice, made in the heat of battle, would subtly influence their initial interactions within Skyrim, though ultimately their destiny transcended political allegiances. The destruction of Helgen was not just a tragic event, it was the world's reintroduction to the dragons, and the last Dragonborn's abrupt entry onto the stage of history. Following their harrowing escape, the last Dragonborn, now a fugitive, made their way to Riverwood, a quaint lumbermill town nestled beside a river. Here, they found temporary refuge and a moment to process the unimaginable events of Helgen. The village, though seemingly peaceful, was abuzz with whispers of dragon attacks, a fear that was quickly spreading across Skyrim. From Riverwood, the journey continued to Whiterun, the bustling capital of Whiterun Hold. Upon arriving, the last Dragonborn was immediately confronted with a pervasive dread that gripped the region. Whiterun's Jarl, Balgruuf the Greater, a pragmatic and respected leader, was deeply concerned by the escalating dragon threat. Having heard the tales of a dragon attack near Whiterun and perhaps recognizing the unusual circumstances of the last Dragonborn's arrival, he requested their assistance. This was a crucial turning point, as it thrust the last Dragonborn directly into the heart of the burgeoning dragon crisis. The first true test of the last Dragonborn's nascent abilities came with the dragon Mirmulnir. This ancient beast, a formidable opponent, was sighted near a watchtower just outside Whiterun. The last Dragonborn, accompanied by Whiterun guards, confronted Mirmulnir in a fierce battle. The dragon, a creature of immense power and ancient wisdom, breathed fire and clawed at its attackers, but the last Dragonborn, driven by an unknown force, fought with a ferocity that surprised even themselves. As Mirmulnir fell, a phenomenon previously thought to be mere legend occurred. The last Dragonborn absorbed the dragon's soul, a blinding flash of light and a guttural roar confirming what the ancient texts had foretold. They were Dragonborn. This ability, unique to those with the soul of a dragon, allowed them to absorb the power and knowledge of fallen dragons, a crucial step in understanding and wielding the Thu'um, the dragon shout. The Whiterun guards, witnesses to this extraordinary event, were stunned into a mixture of awe and fear. Their exclamations of Dragonborn echoed across the battlefield, a collective acknowledgement of a prophecy fulfilled. The implications were profound. The return of dragons was terrifying, but the appearance of a dragonborn, a hero destined to combat them, offered a glimmer of hope in the encroaching darkness. News of this event spread like wildfire, reaching even the most secluded corners of Skyrim. The ancient prophecy, once a distant echo, was now a living, breathing reality. The Dragonborn, an individual once condemned to death, was now recognized as the one who could stand against Alduin and his resurrected kin. The most immediate and significant consequence of the last Dragonborn's revelation was the summons from the Greybeards. These enigmatic masters of the Thuum, dwelling in their secluded monastery high atop the throat of the world, had not spoken in centuries, their voices reserved for moments of profound cosmic significance. Their summons, delivered through the very air itself, a powerful, resonating shout that echoed across all of Skyrim, was unmistakable. Dovahkiin. This ancient word, meaning dragonborn in the dragon tongue, was a direct call to the one who possessed the dragon soul. The Greybeards, led by the venerable Arngir, were the keepers of the Way of the Voice, a philosophical and martial discipline centered around the Thuum. They recognized the Dragonborn as the only one capable of truly mastering the voice, and thus, the only one who could confront the escalating dragon crisis. Their summons was not a request, it was a declaration of destiny. While the cosmic drama of dragons and Dragonborn unfolded, the political landscape of Skyrim remained deeply fractured. A brutal civil war raged between two opposing factions. On one side stood the Imperial Legion, the military arm of the Cyrodiilic Empire, attempting to maintain order and enforce the White Gold Concordat, a controversial treaty that outlawed the worship of Talos, a revered human deity. The Legion was led by General Tullius, a seasoned and pragmatic commander, tasked with quelling the rebellion and bringing Skyrim back under Imperial control. On the other side were the Stormcloaks, a fiercely independent and nationalist faction of Nords who chafed under Imperial rule and the ban on Talos worship. Their leader, Ulfric Stormcloak, was a charismatic Jarl who believed in Skyrim for the Nords and sought to drive out the Empire. This civil war, a conflict of ideologies, traditions, and political power, was tearing the province apart, adding another layer of turmoil to an already tumultuous era. The last Dragonborn, caught between these two powerful forces, would inevitably be drawn into the conflict, their choices potentially swaying the tide of the war. Responding to the Greybeard's summons, the last Dragonborn embarked on the arduous climb to High Hrothgar, the monastery perched precariously on the throat of the world, the highest mountain in Tamriel. This wasn't merely a physical journey, it was a pilgrimage, a symbolic ascent towards enlightenment and understanding. The path was treacherous, winding through snow-covered peaks and ancient ruins, testing the Dragonborn's resolve and endurance. Along the way, they encountered various challenges, both environmental and spiritual. One of the most crucial lessons learned during this ascent was the Clear Skies Shout. This powerful Thuum, taught by the very air itself, or perhaps by the whispers of the mountain, allowed the Dragonborn to part the dense fog and blizzards that often envelop the upper reaches of the throat of the world, making the path navigable and symbolizing a clearing of the mind as well as the skies. This shout was not just a utility, it was an early lesson in the practical application of the voice, a glimpse into the raw power that lay dormant within the Dragonborn. Upon reaching High Hrothgar, the last Dragonborn was greeted by the Greybeards, ancient and venerable masters of the voice. Led by Arngir, the most vocal and approachable of the group, they began to instruct the Dragonborn in the fundamentals of the Thuum. Their methods were unique, involving deep meditation, spiritual communion with the mountain, and direct transmission of knowledge. The Greybeards taught that the voice was not merely a weapon, but a form of expression, a manifestation of one's very soul. They emphasized the importance of control and discipline, warning against the misuse of such immense power. The first major shout they imparted was unrelenting force, a foundational Thuum that allowed the Dragonborn to unleash a powerful wave of kinetic energy, capable of staggering opponents and even shattering objects. This shout, often the first one mastered by a Dragonborn, served as a potent introduction to the destructive potential of the voice, while the Greybeard's teaching simultaneously instilled a sense of responsibility regarding its use. The training at High Hrothgar was a crucial period of introspection and growth, allowing the Dragonborn to begin to harness their innate connection to the dragons and their language. As the last Dragonborn's understanding of the Thuum deepened, another mysterious figure emerged from the shadows. Delphine, a seemingly unassuming innkeeper in Riverwood, revealed herself to be a former member of the Blades, an ancient order of dragon hunters and protectors of Dragonborn emperors. Having closely observed the recent events, and perhaps recognizing the signs of a true Dragonborn, Delphine contacted the last Dragonborn. Her initial skepticism quickly gave way to a grudging acceptance, as she came to believe that the last Dragonborn was the key to stopping the resurgent dragons. The Blades, once a powerful force, had been decimated after the Great War and the signing of the White Gold Concordat, which outlawed their order. Delphine, however, remained committed to their ancient purpose. She saw in the last Dragonborn not just an individual with immense power, but the last hope for Tamriel against the dragon menace. Her contact marked a significant shift in the Dragonborn's journey, introducing them to a clandestine network and a deeper understanding of the historical context of the dragon threat. At Delphine's urging, and as a crucial step in understanding the dragon attacks, the last Dragonborn embarked on a perilous quest to retrieve the Dragonstone from Bleak Falls Barrow. This ancient Nord ruin, a sprawling complex of tombs and forgotten chambers, was rumored to hold a map of dragon burial sites. The journey through Bleak Falls Barrow was fraught with danger, filled with Draugr, ancient undead Nordic warriors, and intricate puzzles. The Dragonstone itself was a relic of immense importance, inscribed with a detailed map revealing the locations of dragon mounds across Skyrim. This artifact was not merely a treasure, it was a vital piece of the puzzle, providing the last Dragonborn and Delphine with the intelligence needed to track and confront the resurrected dragons. The retrieval of the Dragonstone solidified the alliance between the last Dragonborn and the Blades, and marked the beginning of a more proactive approach to combating the dragon threat, moving beyond reactive defense to strategic offense. The stage was now set for the Dragonborn to truly embrace their destiny, with the world watching and the fate of Nirn hanging in the balance. The last Dragonborn, after a harrowing battle at the Western Watchtower, continued their perilous journey, now accompanied by Delphine, a seasoned and cynical member of the Blades. Their next objective was Kynesgrove, a small mining village nestled in the eastern reaches of Skyrim, where another dragon attack had been reported. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burnt wood and fear when they arrived, the villagers still reeling from the devastation. As they investigated the charred remains of homes and the lingering magical residue, a horrifying discovery was made: a dragon burial site. This was not merely a random attack, but a deliberate resurrection. As the last Dragonborn and Delphine watched, the earth itself began to tremble, and a skeletal dragon, its ancient bones reanimated by Alduin's dark power, clawed its way from its tomb. This chilling spectacle confirmed Delphine's gravest fears. The dragons were not merely returning, they were being brought back from the dead, their numbers swelling with each passing day. The implications were dire, suggesting a coordinated effort, a grand design orchestrated by a powerful entity. With the terrifying reality of the dragon resurrections laid bare, Delphine revealed the existence of another surviving blade, a scholar and historian named Esbern. He was said to be hidden deep within the labyrinthine underbelly of Riften, a city known for its shadowy criminal underworld. Navigating the treacherous passages of the Ratway Warrens, a network of squalid tunnels and hovels beneath the city, the last Dragonborn and Delphine eventually located Esbern, a frail but sharp-witted old man, paranoid but immensely knowledgeable. Esbern, recognizing the prophetic significance of the last Dragonborn, shared his vast understanding of dragon lore, his words painting a grim picture of Alduin's true nature and his ultimate goal: to consume the world. His insights were invaluable, providing context and ancient wisdom to the unfolding crisis. With Esbern now in tow, the three surviving members of the Blades, an ancient order of dragon hunters and protectors of the Emperor, began the arduous task of reforming their shattered organization. Their headquarters, Sky Haven Temple, a hidden sanctuary carved into the cliffs of the Karthspire Mountains, became their base of operations. Here, amidst the echoes of a glorious past, the last Dragonborn, Delphine, and Esbern dedicated themselves to the singular goal of eliminating the resurgent dragon threat. The temple, long abandoned and shrouded in mystery, held within its depths a crucial piece of the puzzle: Alduin's Wall. This massive, intricately carved stone mural depicting the ancient history of the dragons and the Dragon War foretold Alduin's return and, crucially, his eventual defeat. The prophecies etched into the stone offered a glimmer of hope, outlining a path to victory, though it was fraught with peril. The ancient carvings on Alduin's wall spoke of a powerful dragonborn, a hero destined to confront Alduin at the throat of the world, the highest peak in Tamriel. The last Dragonborn, understanding the gravity of this prophecy, embarked on a pilgrimage to this sacred and formidable mountain. There, amidst the biting winds and thin air, they sought out Parthurnax, Alduin's own brother, a wise and ancient dragon who had turned against his kin during the Dragon War and now resided in solitary meditation atop the mountain. Parthurnax, a truly unique and enigmatic figure, spoke in the ancient dragon tongue, his words imbued with a profound sense of history and regret. He revealed a truth that defied conventional understanding. Alduin was not truly defeated in the Merethic era, the age before recorded history, but merely banished. The ancient Nords, facing an insurmountable foe, had developed a powerful dragonrend shout, a thum, or voice, that forced dragons to experience mortality, grounding them and making them vulnerable. This shout, a desperate measure born of dire necessity, had been used to hurl Alduin forward through time, banishing him from their era rather than slaying him outright. The revelation of Dragonrend was a game-changer. It was the key to defeating Alduin, the only way to bring the World Eater down from the sky and make him vulnerable. To learn this ancient and forbidden shout, the last Dragonborn had to perform a ritual unlike any other: reading an Elder Scroll. These enigmatic artifacts, incredibly rare and immensely powerful, contained visions of past, present, and future, their true nature beyond mortal comprehension. At the very summit of the throat of the world, under the watchful gaze of Parthurnax, the last Dragonborn gazed into the swirling, chaotic depths of the Elder Scroll. The experience was overwhelming, a torrent of information and sensory input that transcended normal perception. Visions of the ancient dragon war, of the Nord's desperate struggle, and of the very moment Alduin was banished, flooded the Dragonborn's mind. Through this profound and disorienting experience, the Dragonborn learned the Dragonrend's shout, the very power that had once saved Tamriel from Alduin's tyranny. Armed with the knowledge of Dragonrend, the last Dragonborn stood ready to confront Alduin. The stage was set at the throat of the world, a place steeped in ancient power and the echoes of past battles. Alduin, drawn by the Dragonborn's growing power and the resurgence of dragon activity, descended upon the mountain, his dark form casting a colossal shadow. The battle was fierce and epic, a clash of ancient powers. Alduin, the World Eater, unleashed his devastating fire and powerful shouts, his arrogance and fury palpable. But the last Dragonborn, now wielding the Dragonrend shout, had a weapon he could not counter. With a thunderous cry, the Dragonborn unleashed Dragonrend, forcing Alduin to experience mortality, to feel the crushing weight of his own inevitable end. The mighty dragon, brought low and vulnerable, was then assailed by the Dragonborn's own Thuum and blade. Though wounded and humbled, Alduin, in a display of his immense power and cunning, managed to flee, his dark form dissolving into the sky, escaping to a realm beyond mortal reach. Sovngarde. Alduin's retreat to Sovngarde, the Nordic afterlife, presented a new and formidable challenge. To confront him there, the last Dragonborn had to find a way to follow. The path led to Skuldafn Temple, an ancient Nordic ruin located in a remote and perilous region, accessible only by flight. With the aid of Odavain, a dragon who had been defeated and bent to the Dragonborn's will through the Thuum, the last Dragonborn journeyed to Skuldafn. Within the temple's crumbling walls, guarded by powerful dragon priests and their undead minions, lay the portal to Sovngarde. After a grueling battle, the last Dragonborn activated the portal, stepping through the shimmering veil into the ethereal realm of the Nordic honored dead. Sovngarde was a breathtaking sight, a realm of perpetual twilight and towering mist-shrouded halls where the souls of brave Nords feasted and celebrated. But even here, Alduin's dark influence had spread, his presence corrupting the very fabric of the afterlife. Within the Hall of Valor, the last Dragonborn encountered 3 legendary Nord heroes from the Merethic era: Feldir the Old, Gormley, Golden Hilt, and Hakon One-Eye. These were the very heroes who had first banished Alduin, and their spirits, now eternal, were eager to join the final battle. Together, the last Dragonborn and the 3 ancient heroes confronted Alduin. The World Eater, weakened but still immensely powerful, unleashed his full fury, but the combined might of the Dragonborn's Thuum and the ancient hero's unwavering resolve proved too much. Using Dragonrend in concert, they grounded Alduin, forcing him to face his mortality once more. In a climactic and earth-shattering battle, the last Dragonborn, channeling the full power of their dragon blood and the strength of the ancient heroes, finally defeated Alduin, the World Eater. His dark essence shattered, and the threat to Tamriel, and indeed to all of creation, was finally ended. The last Dragonborn, the hero of Skyrim, had fulfilled their destiny, saving the world from complete consumption and ushering in a new era of relative peace. Though the scars of the Dragon Crisis would forever mark the land, the Dragonborn's journey, from an unknown prisoner to the savior of Skyrim, was complete, a testament to the enduring power of prophecy and the indomitable spirit of a true hero. As the Fourth Era progresses beyond the pivotal events of 4E201, the world of Tamriel, and indeed the entirety of the Orbis, the Elder Scrolls cosmos, finds itself poised on the precipice of an unwritten future, a period defined not by recorded history, but by a tapestry of ancient prophecies, persistent threats, and the enduring mysteries that have always underscored this fantastical reality. While the Dragonborn's victory over Alduin marked a significant turning point, it was by no means an ultimate resolution to all existential dangers. Instead, it merely cleared the stage for a new act, one shrouded in uncertainty and foreboding whispers. Among the most chilling of these prophecies is the concept of landfall. This isn't just a vague prediction of disaster, it's a specific, terrifying vision, particularly prominent in the lore surrounding the lost continent of Yokuda, the ancestral home of the Redguards, and the enigmatic figure of Zurin Arctis, the Underking. Landfall speaks of an event, or series of events, that will utterly destroy Tamriel itself, wiping it clean from the face of Nirn, the mortal plane. Some interpretations link it to the Numidium, a colossal, reality-bending automaton, while others suggest a more cosmic, perhaps even divine intervention. The sheer scale of this prophesied destruction dwarfs even the most devastating wars or natural calamities Tamriel has ever endured. It implies a fundamental alteration, or even cessation, of life as it is known. The echoes of Yokuda's own destruction, a cataclysm that shattered the continent and forced its inhabitants to flee to Tamriel, lend a horrifying credibility to the landfall prophecy. That event, often attributed to the sword singers or Ansei, Yokudan warrior sages, and their mythical Pankratosword technique, serves as a grim precursor, a historical precedent for the kind of world-ending calamity landfall portends. The notion that such a cataclysm could be intentionally wrought, perhaps by a desperate act or a malevolent force, adds another layer of dread to the prophecy. Further compounding this sense of cyclical doom is the pervasive philosophy of the Kalpa cycle. This concept, deeply ingrained in various cultures, particularly the Reachmen and certain scholarly circles, posits that the entire universe, the Arbus itself, is not a static entity, but rather undergoes periodic destruction and rebirth. Each Kalpa represents a complete cosmic cycle, beginning with creation and ending in utter annihilation, only for a new cycle to begin anew. The most prominent figure associated with the end of a Kalpa is Alduin, the World Eater, whose role is not merely to destroy Tamriel, but to consume the very fabric of existence, paving the way for the next iteration of reality. While the last Dragonborn seemingly averted Alduin's immediate threat in 4E201, the underlying principle of the Kalpa cycle remains. Alduin's defeat might have merely delayed the inevitable, or perhaps he was but one manifestation of a larger cosmic force. The cyclical nature of time and creation, as understood by various Elder Scrolls scholars, suggests that ultimate destruction is not an anomaly, but a fundamental recurring feature of the universe. This perspective casts a long shadow over any temporary victory, implying that all triumphs are fleeting in the grand scheme of cosmic recurrence. The idea that all history, all struggles, all triumphs are destined to be erased and reborn, only to repeat variations of the same patterns, is a profound and unsettling philosophical underpinning of the Elder Scrolls universe. It suggests that the end of days is not a singular event, but a recurring intrinsic part of the Orbis's existence, a cosmic breath in and out. Given these profound prophecies, the ultimate fate of Nirn and the Orbis remains shrouded in an impenetrable veil of uncertainty. Will the Kalpa cycle continue indefinitely, each iteration a slight variation on the last? Will landfall spell a definitive, irreversible end to Tamriel? Or will some unforeseen force, perhaps an intervention from the unknowable higher powers often referred to as the Godhead, the theoretical ultimate creator of the Orbis, whose dreams are said to be reality, alter the fundamental rules of existence? These questions have no definitive answers, only speculation and the chilling implications of ancient texts. The very nature of the Orbis, a dreamlike construct, suggests that its reality is inherently fluid and potentially subject to profound, even whimsical changes. The possibility that the entire cosmos could simply cease to be or be fundamentally reshaped by an act of a higher consciousness adds an almost existential dread to the unknown future. The concept of Chim, a state of enlightenment where one realizes the dreamlike nature of reality without ceasing to exist, further complicates this, suggesting that sufficiently powerful individuals might be able to influence or even reshape the Orbis on a fundamental level, blurring the lines between creation and destruction. Amidst this cosmic uncertainty, the enigmatic artifacts known as the Elder Scrolls themselves continue to serve as a constant, if cryptic, source of potential futures. These ancient, unknowable artifacts contain all possible pasts, presents, and futures existing outside of conventional time. While reading them can inflict blindness and madness, they offer glimpses into events yet to unfold. The Moth priests of the Imperial City dedicate their lives to interpreting these scrolls, though their understandings are always partial and often metaphorical. The very existence of the Elder Scrolls implies that the future, while potentially vast and varied, is not entirely unwritten. However, their prophecies are rarely straightforward, often requiring significant interpretation and offering multiple branching possibilities rather than a single, predetermined path. This ambiguity means that while they hint at grand events, they rarely provide concrete solutions or clear warnings, leaving mortals to grapple with the implications of fragmented visions. Their power to reveal potential futures also implies a degree of predetermination, yet the actions of heroes and villains alike still seem to shape the path taken, suggesting a complex interplay between fate and free will. The ever-present threat of the Daedric princes, powerful, immortal beings from the plains of Oblivion, often associated with specific spheres of influence like destruction, madness, or knowledge, looms large over the future. While some princes, like Mehrunes Dagon or Molag Bal, have been directly involved in major historical conflicts, others have remained more in the background, their intentions and ultimate goals still largely unknown. The return of a previously subdued prince, or the emergence of a new, unforeseen cosmic threat from the myriad realms of Oblivion, is always a distinct possibility. The pacts and schemes of these godlike entities often span millennia, and their patience is boundless. A prince like Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric prince of knowledge and fate, might be slowly manipulating events from the shadows, gathering information for some grand, unknown design. Azura, the prince of dawn and dusk, might seek to punish mortals for perceived transgressions. The potential for a new Daedric invasion, a subtle manipulation of mortal affairs, or even a direct confrontation between the princes themselves could irrevocably alter the course of history. Furthermore, the Aedra, the divine beings who sacrifice much of their power to create Mundus, the mortal plane, are largely passive. Their influence felt more through the natural order than direct intervention. This leaves the mortal races and the Daedra as the primary active players in shaping the future, with the Daedra often representing the most immediate and tangible external threats. One of the most potent and terrifying instruments of change capable of reshaping reality itself is the Numidium. This colossal Dwemer, an ancient technologically advanced elven race, construct also known as the Brass God, is a walking paradox, powered by the heart of Lorcan, a divine artifact, and capable of enforcing its user's will upon the very fabric of existence. Its previous activations, particularly during the Warp in the West, also known as the Miracle of Peace, a period where the Numidium's activation caused multiple conflicting realities to occur simultaneously, resulted in dragon breaks, periods where linear time breaks down and multiple timelines occur at once. If reactivated, whether by the Thalmor, a powerful elven supremacist organization, a desperate empire, or some other faction, the Numidium could once again plunge Tamriel into a chaotic multidimensional nightmare, rewriting history and reshaping the present in unimaginable ways. The sheer power of the Numidium, its ability to negate or rewrite reality, makes it a weapon of ultimate destructive and creative potential, a sword of Damocles hanging over the future of Nirn. Its very existence is a testament to the Dwemer's hubris and their unparalleled mastery of tonal architecture, a form of sonic magic that can manipulate the very tones of creation. The possibility of its return, or the creation of a similar construct, represents a threat that transcends conventional warfare or magical confrontation. Speaking of the Thalmor, their long-term goals for Marish, elven dominance, and their ultimate ambition to unmake Mundus, the mortal plane, continue to unfold, representing perhaps the most immediate and politically charged threat to the future of Tamriel. The Thalmor believe that Lorcan, the divine trickster figure who orchestrated the creation of Mundus, trapped the Aedra in this mortal prison, diminishing their divinity. Their ultimate aim is to dismantle the towers, magical constructs that anchor reality, and thereby unravel Mundus itself, allowing the elves to ascend back to a state of pure spirit or achieve a higher form of existence, free from the perceived imperfections of mortality. This extremist ideology drives their political machinations. Their persecution of Talos worship, Talos, an ascended human, represents the apotheosis of humanity, anathema to the Thalmor's goals, and their efforts to destabilize the Empire. Their influence is pervasive, their agents active across Tamriel, and their patience is legendary. The White Gold Concordat, the peace treaty that ended the Great War between the Empire and the Aldmeri Dominion, the Thalmor-led Elven Empire, was merely a tactical pause in their long-term strategy. The Thalmor's vision for the future is not merely conquest, but existential alteration, a complete rewrite of the cosmic order as they understand it. Their continued rise to power and their persistent pursuit of these radical goals ensure that the Fourth Era and beyond will be marked by ongoing conflict and ideological struggle. The towers themselves, those ancient, powerful magical constructs that anchor reality, are intrinsically linked to the stability of Mundus. There are several known towers, both natural and artificial, each with a stone that acts as its focal point. Examples include the Adamantine Tower, the oldest structure in Tamriel, the Red Mountain, a natural tower in Morrowind, and the White Gold Tower, the Imperial City's central edifice. If these towers are deactivated or destroyed as the Thalmor indeed desire, it could unravel reality itself, leading to a profound destabilization of the mortal plane, perhaps even its complete unmaking. The destruction of the Red Mountain's heart in 3E 427, for instance, had catastrophic consequences for Morrowind, demonstrating the profound impact these structures have on the world. The towers are not just landmarks, they are fundamental pillars of creation, their existence integral to the coherence and stability of Nirn. The possibility of their deliberate destruction, whether by the Thalmor or some other malevolent force, represents a threat on a cosmic scale, capable of literally tearing reality apart. Each tower's stone is a unique artifact, a powerful focal point for its magic, and the manipulation or destruction of these stones could have unforeseen and devastating consequences for the entire Orbis. One of the most persistent and tantalizing mysteries of the Elder Scrolls universe is the eventual return of the missing Dwemer. This highly advanced elven race vanished without a trace in 1E700, leaving behind their intricate ruins, complex automatons like the Centurions and Spheres, and their profound, often dangerous magical technologies. Their disappearance is arguably the greatest unresolved enigma in Tamrielic history. Theories abound, ranging from their collective ascension to a higher plane of existence, their accidental self-annihilation through their tonal architecture experiments, or their absorption into the Numidium. The possibility of their return, whether as a unified people or as fragmented survivors, is a recurring theme in scholarly discussions and prophetic whispers. If they were to reappear, their advanced technology and unique understanding of the Orbis could drastically alter the balance of power and introduce entirely new paradigms of magic and science. Their return would not merely be a historical curiosity, it would be an event with profound implications for all races of Tamriel, potentially ushering in an era of unprecedented technological advancement or unimaginable conflict. Their mastery of the arcane and the mechanical, their understanding of the tones of creation, sets them apart, and their reappearance would be nothing short of world-changing. The fate of the last Dragonborn, the hero of Skyrim, after Alduin's defeat remains a profound and deliberate unknown. Having absorbed the soul of Alduin and potentially countless other dragons, the Dragonborn possesses immense power and a unique connection to both the divine and the draconian. Did they ascend to Aetherius, the realm of the Aedra, often considered the afterlife for mortals, perhaps to serve Akatosh, the chief Aedra, dragon god of time, in some capacity? Did they journey to Apocrypha, the realm of Hermaeus Mora, as a potential successor or servant, given their interactions with the Daedric prince? Or did they simply retire from the world, their immense power and unique nature making them an anomaly in mortal society. The ambiguity surrounding their ultimate destiny is intentional, allowing players to imagine their own continuation of the narrative. However, their continued existence or potential return represents a powerful, unpredictable force in the future. A hero of such magnitude does not simply vanish without leaving a cosmic footprint. Their potential to intervene in future crises or even to become a new source of power or conflict is immense, making their unknown fate a lingering question mark over the future of Tamriel. The cyclical nature of heroism in the Elder Scrolls universe suggests the potential for new vestiges or heroes to emerge in response to future threats. Just as the Nerevarine arose to defeat Dagoth-Ur and the champion of Cyrodiil vanquished Mehrunes Dagon, and the last Dragonborn confronted Alduin, so too will new champions be needed to face the challenges of the unwritten future. These vestiges, often chosen or empowered by divine forces, are instrumental in maintaining the balance of the Orbis. Whether they are mortals imbued with extraordinary power or even new incarnations of ancient heroes, their emergence is a recurring pattern in times of crisis. The future will undoubtedly bring new dangers, and with them, the necessity for new heroes to rise, each with their own unique destiny and connection to the grand tapestry of the Elder Scrolls lore. The nature of these new heroes, their origins, and the specific threats they will face remains to be seen, but their eventual appearance is almost a certainty within the established narrative framework. Beyond the mortal and Daedric realms, the possible reemergence of the Magna G, the children of Aetherius, divine beings who followed Magnus, the architect of Mundus, in abandoning its creation, leaving holes in the firmament that allow magic to flow into Nirn, like Magnus himself, could profoundly alter the very fabric of magic. Magnus, the god of magic, is said to have fled Mundus during its creation, leaving a massive hole in the sky, the sun, through which magic flows. His return, or the return of other powerful Magna G, could lead to an unprecedented surge of magical energy, new forms of spellcraft, or even a fundamental shift in how magic operates on Nirn. Such an event could be both a blessing and a curse, offering immense power but also potentially destabilizing the delicate balance of the arcane. The Magna G represent a largely untapped and mysterious aspect of the Elder Scrolls cosmology, and their potential re-engagement with Mundus could have truly cataclysmic or transformative effects on the practice and understanding of magic. Their return could unleash ancient forms of magic, or perhaps even re-establish a direct connection between Nirn and Aetherius, fundamentally changing the nature of reality. Finally, the prophecy of the Red Moment in Yokudan lore hints at significant future events. While its exact nature is shrouded in mystery, it is often associated with a cataclysmic event, perhaps even a second landfall, or a resurgence of Yokudan power. The Redguards, descendants of the Yokudans, are a proud and martial people, and their ancient prophecies often speak of great trials and transformations. The Red Moment could be a period of immense conflict, a divine intervention, or a fundamental shift in the cosmic order that has particular significance for the Redguard people and their destiny. The echoes of Yokuda's destruction and the Redguard's unique connection to the Pancrado sword, a mythical sword-singing technique capable of cutting concepts from existence, suggest that the Red Moment could involve a manipulation of reality on a scale equal to or even exceeding the Numidium's capabilities. This prophecy, like many others, serves as a tantalizing glimpse into a potential future, a reminder that the Elder Scrolls universe is vast, ancient, and filled with untold stories yet to unfold. The heart of Lorkhan, that divine spark ripped from the dead god's chest, remains a pivotal, volatile force. Though seemingly silenced after the Nerevarines' intervention, its ultimate fate and its connection to the world's stability are crucial. The heart, a source of immense power, was the wellspring for the Tribunal's godhood and the subject of countless conflicts. Its continued existence, even in a dormant state, represents a fundamental vulnerability in the fabric of Mundus. Should it ever be reactivated or its power somehow harnessed anew, the consequences would be catastrophic, potentially reshaping Nirn itself or plunging it into another era of divine warfare. The very concept of the heart underscores the precarious balance of power in Tamriel, a balance often maintained by the absence of such overwhelming forces. Its potential resurgence, or even its complete destruction, could trigger a chain reaction across all planes of existence, fundamentally altering the nature of magic, divinity, and mortality. The echoes of its power resonate through history, a constant reminder of the raw, untamed forces that lie beneath the surface of the world. For the Thieves' Guild, a more earthly, yet no less significant prophecy awaits: the Night Mother's return to prominence. This shadowy figure, revered by the Dark Brotherhood and respected even by the Guild, represents the very essence of clandestine operations and dark dealings. Her influence, though often indirect, has shaped countless events, and her full realization within the Thieves' Guild's prophecies suggests a coming age where the shadows hold greater sway. This isn't merely about a resurgence of criminal activity, but a deeper, more fundamental shift in the balance of power, where the unseen forces and the illicit trades become more central to the world's functioning. The Night Mother, as the supposed bride of Sithis, embodies the primordial chaos that underlies creation, and her heightened prominence could signify a period of increased entropy and moral ambiguity across Tamriel. Her return, as prophesied, could also mean a deeper integration of the Thieves Guild with the Dark Brotherhood, creating a formidable, unified network of covert influence that could challenge even the most established political and military powers. This prophecy whispers of an era where the traditional structures of authority are undermined not by open warfare, but by the insidious machinations of those who operate in the deepest shadows. The prophecy of the Dragonborn, whose fulfillment we witnessed in the Fourth Era, continues to be debated in terms of its full implications for future eras. While the defeat of Alduin brought an end to a cataclysmic threat, the very nature of a Dragonborn, a mortal with the soul of a dragon, suggests a role far beyond a single crisis. The Dragonborn is not merely a hero, but a force of nature, a living embodiment of Akatosh's will, capable of wielding the Thu'um, the voice, with unparalleled power. What does such an individual represent in a world constantly teetering on the brink of collapse? Are they destined to be a recurring figure, a safeguard against future existential threats? Or was the last Dragonborn a singular event, a final desperate measure? The prophecy itself is shrouded in ancient texts and obscure interpretations, leaving ample room for speculation. Some believe the Dragonborn's very existence alters the fabric of reality, perhaps even influencing the flow of time itself. Others fear that such immense power, even in benevolent hands, could become a new source of conflict or a tool for unforeseen destruction. The legacy of the Dragonborn, therefore, is not merely a historical footnote, but a living question mark hanging over the future of Tamriel, a constant reminder of the potential for both salvation and devastation embodied in a single individual. The very concept of a mortal born with the soul of a dragon implies a blurring of divine and mortal spheres, a potential for a new kind of leadership, or even a new form of divinity to emerge, fundamentally altering the power dynamics of Nirn. Echoes of a forgotten past resound in the Aeoliad prophecies of a white gold tower's fall and rebirth. The white gold tower, the heart of the imperial city and a symbol of Cyrodiilic power, was originally an Aeoliad creation, imbued with their arcane might and intricate magical design. Its cyclical destruction and renewal, as foretold by these ancient elves, speaks to a deeper understanding of cosmic patterns and the ephemeral nature of even the grandest civilizations. This isn't just about a physical structure collapsing, but about the rise and fall of empires, the ebb and flow of power, and the cyclical nature of history itself. The Aeoliads, with their profound connection to magic and their mastery of architectural enchantments, likely foresaw periods of immense upheaval that would challenge the very foundations of Tamrielic society. The rebirth aspect of the prophecy suggests that from the ashes of destruction, something new and perhaps even more powerful will emerge, a testament to the resilience of life and the enduring spirit of creation. This prophecy serves as a stark reminder that even the most enduring symbols of power are ultimately transient, subject to the inexorable forces of change and the cyclical nature of existence. It implies that the current imperial hegemony is not an eternal state, and that a future collapse, perhaps even a cataclysmic one, is not just possible, but prophesied. What form this rebirth would take, whether a new empire, a different form of governance, or something entirely unforeseen, remains a mystery, but the Aeoliad prophecies hint at a future where the current order is fundamentally dismantled and rebuilt. The Dwemer's understanding of the Orbis, the entire Elder Scrolls cosmos, and their mysterious disappearance hold keys to future events that remain tantalizingly out of reach. These enigmatic Mer, with their unparalleled mastery of science, engineering, and tonal architecture, delve deeper into the fundamental nature of reality than any other race. Their experiments with the heart of Lorcan, their creation of the Numidium, and their ultimate vanishing act are not merely historical curiosities, but profound mysteries that continue to influence the present and hint at the future. Their understanding of the Orbi, particularly their insights into the nature of creation, the divine, and the very fabric of existence, could provide answers to questions that still plague scholars and mages. The secrets of their tonal architecture, a science that manipulates sound and vibration to warp reality, could unlock new forms of power or even offer a path to understanding the nature of the Orbis itself. Their disappearance, whether a journey to another plane, a fundamental alteration of their existence, or a catastrophic miscalculation, remains a powerful enigma. The possibility of their return, or the rediscovery of their lost knowledge, could fundamentally alter the course of history, offering humanity and Mer a new understanding of their place in the cosmos and unlocking technologies and magics beyond current comprehension. The Dwemer represent a road not taken, a path of scientific and magical advancement that could either lead to unprecedented prosperity or unimaginable destruction, and their legacy continues to cast a long shadow over the future. Further hinting at these possibilities is the Clockwork City and Sotha Sil's creations. This hidden realm, a testament to the genius of one of the Tribunal, is a microcosm of a potential future for Nirn. Sotha Sil, the clockwork god, sought to perfect the world, to create a realm of order and artificial life, free from the chaos and imperfections of Mundus. His creations, the factotums, the fabricants, and the intricate mechanisms that govern the Clockwork City represent an alternative path for civilization, one driven by technological advancement and a meticulous pursuit of perfection. The existence of the Clockwork City, a self-sustaining ecosystem of gears, steam, and artificial intelligence, demonstrates the potential for mortals to transcend their biological limitations and create new forms of life and society. It raises questions about the definition of life, the ethics of artificial intelligence, and the ultimate goals of technological progress. While Sotha Sil's vision was ultimately flawed, his creations offer a glimpse into a future where the lines between magic and technology and between organic and synthetic life become increasingly blurred. The Clockwork City stands as a powerful symbol of mortal ambition and the potential for both utopian and dystopian futures, a testament to the boundless ingenuity of mortals and the potential for them to reshape their world in radical ways. Its continued existence, even after Sotha Sil's demise, means its secrets and technologies could still be discovered and exploited, potentially leading to a new era of engineering and artificial life that could forever change Tamriel. The Hiss trees of Black Marsh, those ancient, sentient beings, possess an ancient knowledge and a collective consciousness that could profoundly influence future events. These unique, extraplanar entities are not merely flora, but living conduits to a primordial intelligence that predates most of recorded history. Their connection to the Argonians, their chosen people, grants them a unique perspective on the flow of time and the underlying currents of the Orbis. The Hist are not passive observers. They actively guide and subtly manipulate events through their connection with the Argonians, especially during times of great upheaval. Their collective consciousness holds untold secrets, prophecies, and understandings of the universe that could prove invaluable in navigating future crises. Should their influence expand, or their knowledge be fully unleashed, the very nature of Tamrielic politics and power dynamics could be irrevocably altered. The Hist represent a primal, organic force that stands in stark contrast to the technological aspirations of the Dwemer or Sotha Sil, offering a different path to understanding and influencing the world. Their potential to awaken dormant powers within the Argonians, or to directly intervene in global affairs, makes them a silent, yet immensely powerful force in the unfolding narrative of Tamriel, a reminder that the oldest forms of life often hold the deepest wisdom and the greatest potential for change. The Void Nights event, a period of 2 years when Tamriel's moons, Masser and Secunda, vanished from the sky, and its subsequent resolution, hint at future cosmic manipulations on a grand scale. This cataclysmic event, engineered by the Thalmor, revealed the profound vulnerability of Mundus to external forces and the terrifying efficacy of powerful magic wielded with malicious intent. The moons, integral to Khajiit physiology and culture, are also fundamental celestial bodies that influence tides, magic, and even the stability of the planet itself. Their disappearance and reappearance, orchestrated through unknown means, demonstrated a level of cosmic manipulation previously thought impossible for mortals. This event serves as a chilling precedent, suggesting that the very fabric of reality can be bent and broken by sufficiently powerful mages or divine entities. It opens the door to future threats that are not merely terrestrial, but cosmic in scope, where celestial bodies themselves become pawns in grander schemes. The Void Knights highlight the precariousness of Tamriel's existence within the Orbis and the potential for future conflicts to transcend the boundaries of Nirn, drawing in forces from other planes and dimensions. The implications are profound. If the moons can be stolen, what else can be manipulated? The event underscores the fragility of the cosmos and the ever-present danger of entities, both mortal and divine, seeking to reshape reality to their own ends. Finally, the Moth Priests, those dedicated interpreters of the Elder Scrolls, continue to reveal glimpses of coming eras, their cryptic pronouncements serving as constant reminders of the predetermined threads woven into the tapestry of time. These revered scholars who sacrifice their sight to read the impossibly complex texts are the living conduits to the future, their minds scarred by the visions they perceive. Their interpretations, though often obscure and metaphorical, offer tantalizing clues about the challenges and triumphs that lie ahead. The Elder Scrolls themselves are not mere books, but reflections of all possible pasts, presents, and futures, constantly shifting and reweaving themselves. The Moth Priest's ongoing work ensures that humanity and Myr are not entirely blind to the forces that shape their destiny, even if the full meaning of their revelations often remains elusive until events unfold. Their continued existence and their arduous task underscore the idea that, while free will exists, there are also fundamental patterns and prophecies that guide the flow of history. The whispers of the Elder Scrolls, translated by the Moth Priests, serve as a constant, unsettling reminder that the future is not entirely unwritten, and that the grand narrative of Tamriel continues to unfold, guided by forces both known and unknown, towards a destiny that is both terrifying and inevitable. Their presence reminds us that even in the darkest of times, there are those who strive to understand the larger cosmic plan, even if the cost is their very perception of the world. From the primordial chaos of the Dawn era, through the tumultuous shifts of the Merithic and First, the rise and fall of empires in the Second and Third, and into the uncertain prophecies of the Fourth, the Elder Scrolls saga has unfolded across millennia, a tapestry woven with the threads of creation, conflict, and the enduring spirit of its diverse peoples. This intricate chronology, marked by divine intervention, mortal ambition, and the relentless march of fate, forms the bedrock upon which every legend is built and every adventure played out, and that is the complete The Elder Scrolls timeline.